What is going on, everybody? And welcome on in. We got the wrong background up. It's like we've never done this before. I left the show.
Terrible.
Hey, welcome on in to episode 300 of the Garage Beers podcast. We are so excited that you're here because we have got an absolutely enormous show planned for you tonight here on Garage Beers Live. Again, episode 300. We try to do it big for these Centennial episodes. If you'll remember, going all the way back to episode 100, Hall of Fame Cleveland Browns left tackle Joe Thomas, and one of the all-time great Cleveland Cavaliers, really one of the all-time great college basketball players, Austin Carr, and the greatest Columbus Blue Jacket of all time in Rick Nash, episode 200. We had, how about a two-time Heisman Award winner in Archie Griffin? How about one of the most electric Cleveland Browns players to ever play for the Orange and Brown in Eric Metcalf? And how about the biggest all-star snub in Major League Baseball right now that wasn't on steroids? How about one of the greatest center fielders to ever play for the Cleveland Indians? It was Kenny Lofton. And we gotta match that energy. And we're gonna do that tonight. We've got three incredible special guests for you tonight, and we are so glad that you're here with us. As always, Garage Beers brought to you proudly here on the OBR streaming network. Get over to theobr.com and hit subscribe so you can be a part of everything going on with the OBR. And joining you as always for 300 episodes, I'm your host, Michael Keefe. Joining me, my two co-hosts, one over on the east side of Cleveland, Chad Meyer, and one out in Seattle, Washington, Joey Whalen. Boys, we're here. We've made it. We've done it.
We've been doing this 300 fucking times.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Let's go.
Unreal, isn't it?
Let's go. Wow. Man, time flies.
Would have never guessed we would have made it to 300.
Dude.
No. Would not have put money on it even. But hey, we're here. It's been a freaking ride, boys.
Yeah.
And very fun. So very happy to have made it this far.
Yeah.
Listen.
In the future, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, well, there's plenty more to come. We got our 6-year anniversary coming up, April 1st.
Shit.
And just moving.
What is that
right
the year
along.
of? Is that like parchment or
like the gift that you give for the 6-year anniversary? I think it's toenails.
Oh, good, nice.
I think it's feet picks. I think it's the year of feet picks.
Yeah. Maybe for episode 400, I'll see if Joe Tiger King is available.
Man, boys, when you look back on this, and we're going to get into the episode, we're going to do our Garage Beers of the Week before we get into our first guest, which is it is the most perfect guest that we could possibly have tonight. But when you look back, boys, April 1st, 2020, we do episode number 1. And we do episode number 1 after Chad and I had talked about doing a podcast for years.
Yeah.
And I got to give credit to Chad for just being down to start. And I got to give credit to my wife, Joey's sister, Katie, who said, I'm so tired of listening to you talk about this shit. She just went out and bought the microphone and stuff. I was like, here, now you got to do it. And she's the one that kickstarted it. I think about the 2 episodes that Chad and I did when we had no idea what we were doing.
Zero.
And I got to tell you, Chad and I, this was our baby idea. But this episode, this podcast doesn't go where it goes without Joey, because he comes on
for sure
and knows what he's doing and produces this thing for years. And yeah, hell yeah. It starts there. And we have no sports to talk about April 1st of 2020. We have literally nothing that we can actually talk about because hello, pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talked a lot of Tiger King.
Sure. Yeah. Just a lot of nostalgia, a lot of lists, a lot of like drafts and lists.
And I can still remember sitting in my basement of my old house. Oh, shit, I've done this from 3 different places that I've lived. First guest, Tim Alcorn.
Yeah.
And real early on, Jay Crawford and Chico. And like, we were like, man, Eric, no, Felix Wright. I almost said Eric. Right?
Yeah.
Felix Wright was one of our first guests.
I'll never forget. Like that was our first like well-known Cleveland guest. And I'll never forget. He was like, yeah, just give me my cell phone number. I'm like, oh, this shit is easy. Okay. I just got to DM him and I just get their phone numbers. Yeah, sure. Okay.
We go for a while, just doing it on our own, just putting it out there, having a great time. All the things that have kind of helped us along the way, man. We were on this Belly Up Sports Network which just was kind of a recognition. They reached out and they were like, "Hey, we think you guys should be on our network," and we were like, "Okay." And it was like a national thing, and we didn't get real close. We weren't there long, but they were part of our journey, and I will never forget a couple former OBR staffers, and Jake Burns and Stephen Thomas coming on with us, and then they had so much fun with us one night. They decided they wanted us to be a part of the OBR, and they said, "We will let you guys be the only thing on the OBR that just isn't Browns."
Yeah.
And Barry, they hooked me up with Barry. They hooked us up with Barry, and we have been on the OBR now since we've been on the OBR a little over 4 years.
Yeah, I put my foot down. Yeah, whoa. I remember I put my foot down. I said, "I will not be pigeonholed in just being a Browns podcast, Barry." And Barry was like, "Okay, you're fine. All right, I'm sorry. You can do it." Yeah, and I said, "Yeah, you're damn right." That's how it went down.
And about 4 years
later,
how
it went down. That's not
how it went down. You know how long we've been here because like when I'm running things on the screen here, we are now like when I go to pull up like the garage beers, like I got to change the graphics on the screen. We're just like the top one at this point. Like we're the one that's been around the longest. That's where we're at. So it's been an awesome ride. And the coolest thing is all the comments that I've been flashing and all that I'll continue to flash up here on the screen. But you guys joining us week in and week out. And hanging out with us all the way. I've got to give this one a special shout out, Sean. I agree with this. I was just thinking about this. Christ. I was just thinking about this the other day. Chad did a bracket of the best sports movies, and we did half the bracket, and then Chad just never did the other half.
Totally forgot about that.
Next week,
forgot about that.
Episode 401.
Next week on episode 301. It is
301.
And it'll probably be 401 before I remember.
We're going to have to go back and look at the last one. But no, listen, it's been so fun, and we're so glad you're along for the ride. And so we're going to crack open some special beers, and we're going to get into this very, very special, very stacked episode 300 of the Garage Beers podcast. So, boys, Joe, you're the reason we exist for this long. Why don't you do the honors and do the first beer of episode 300?
All right. We'll clean out the Christmas beers in the fridge kind of night. And we have Everything Nice that I got from Total Wine. This is from, I didn't really set myself up for success. Brewery Omegang.
Oh, yeah. That's from Cooperstown, New York.
Brewery.
It's actually from Kansas City, Missouri.
Omegang?
Nope. Both.
It's from Cooperstown, New York. Well, the brewery is from Cooperstown, New York. It might be bought or canned in Kansas City.
But this is a strong blonde ale with seasonal spices. And we have the Corn Palace Cup, of course. You can really see how that beer looks in there. This is delicious. This is like a very light version of a Christmas ale, but like you can tell it's still gonna pack a punch. So, oops.
I'm a gang. It's a beer for Joey.
Oh yeah, it sounds delicious. Joe's a sucker for a strong blonde. He's a sucker for a strong blonde. All right, so Joe's got one from Omegang, from Cooperstown. Chad, what do you got? What's the beer? I think we saw it already. But
is there anything that says party like a Modelo, guys? I mean, come on. Let's get a little lime in here, right? It's just plus with how cold it's been, this just puts me on a beach somewhere, like on an island. It's with warm and just I would give anything for a mosquito bite in 80 degrees right now.
But that's my hockey beer right there.
Perfect. It is. Yeah. It's just. To me, it's a party beer.
Hell yes, absolutely. Let's see what else we got. What do we got going on here? The finest Texarkana bourbon for Chef Brian K. The Poke Holes. I've been to Texarkana. I've stayed overnight in Texarkana. I ate at a Texas Roadhouse in Texarkana once. That's all I know about Texarkana.
All right.
Let's see what else do we got.
Wait, where's that bourbon from?
From Texarkana.
Poking Holes. It said. I think it was.
Tiger K4, Midwest Hazy IPA from Great Lakes Brewing. Love that.
I love all these happy 300s. Let's go.
I know. Having a Sam Adams Winter White Ale. That's a great beer. Where's the one I saw before? This was great from Phil Is Not a Bot. Phil's been on fire tonight, by the way. But maybe not a super special one, but as an Italian, having a Peroni to celebrate the milestone. Hell yeah,
okay.
Phil. Hey. Phil, the most Italian name. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Peroni. I ain't a bot, but I'm Italian, okay? Hey, here's a Peroni. How you doing? Peroni.
All right. All right. That brings it over to me. I ran to the store and I got this is a really cool brewery. I don't even know where it's from, to be honest with you, but I've seen it out and about Richmond, Virginia. And this is the Vale Brewing Company. And the name of the beer is the Master Shredder.
Nice.
And the Vale beers are delicious. If you ever see them out at the store, they are awesome. They're not the cheapest beers, but they are great beers. And so, of course, had to go with just the standard hazy IPA. Delicious New England hazy IPA from the Vale.
For you.
It is the staple, and you got to have the staple on episode 300. So, boys, you got your beers. To everybody watching, raise a glass. Episode 300. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad you do this with us every week. And now let's get in to episode 300 of Garage Beers. Oh, by the way, now that you're in the laundry room, Chad, Chris wants you to know that your buzzer went off on your dryer and it's time to fold.
Yeah, no, it's got to go through a second cycle. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Listen, we are touching all the Cleveland sports teams here tonight, and we're going to start with the most newsworthy events going on in Cleveland sports, and that's going to all revolve around the Cleveland Cavaliers. The NBA trade deadline is tomorrow, and the Cavaliers have made big moves already, and we will see. We don't know if there's big moves on the horizon or not for them, but a lot of big moves coming on, and Chad and I had the distinct pleasure of talking with a man who is one of only 20 people to win the Chuck Daly Lifetime Achievement Award. Only one of 20 coaches in NBA history to win that award. He is a one-time NBA Coach of the Year, and he is a guy that led the Cavs during a really interesting time, and you're going to hear all about it. We talked to him yesterday, so it was before the trade went down, but we kind of knew the trade was being rumored to go down, and so just to give you a heads up, if we're talking about it as if it hasn't happened yet, it's because it hadn't happened yet. But there's not much of a better person we could talk about the James Harden, Darius Garland trade with than this man who obviously knows the Cavs, but he's still spending time as a part-time analyst for Cavs TV broadcasts, and he spends the other part of his time as an analyst for the Los Angeles Clippers and their TV broadcast. I don't know how that could have gone any better for us on timing. We're going to throw it over now to an interview we did with legendary Cavaliers coach Mike Fratello, and we'll be back with you live right after that. All right. Episode 300 rolls along with another huge special guest for us here. First time talking to this gentleman, but a guy in Cleveland who has been known for decades and decades, a legendary NBA coach, one of just a few people, 20 people overall, to win the Chuck Daly Lifetime Achievement Award in the NBA, and he was the coach of the Cavaliers in the early 90s at a really interesting point in time for that team as they kind of transitioned, but had a lot of success and has stuck with the Cavaliers ever since. You can still catch him as an analyst every once in a while covering the games, but we're very excited to be joined now by Mike Fratello. Mike, thank you for joining the show.
It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be in Cleveland as long as I have. When I came in 94, I wasn't sure how long it would last, and after my 6 years as a head coach, I'm still here, and I think we're down the road a bit.
Yeah, down the road. We didn't want to get rid of you, and that's a great thing, and still doing so many good things with the Cavs. Mike, that was kind of going to be part of the way we started this interview, but we'll unveil the curtain a little bit. Obviously, we're recording this for our episode, but as we record this, there's a little bit of news going on in the NBA right now, and I don't think we could have much of a better person on to discuss what's going on in the NBA right now than you, because not only are you doing things as a part-time analyst with the Cavs, but you are also working as a part-time analyst with the LA Clippers, and news broke last night, Mike. So just give us your initial thoughts on this. News broke last night that it appears as though the Clippers and the Cavaliers are having some pretty serious conversations about a trade that may involve James Harden and Darius Garland.
So let me preface this all by saying I was watching the Clipper game last night, and they had just played at Phoenix the night before, had a big win in Phoenix without James Harden. And I watched that game and scratched my head because I wasn't quite sure I knew why Harden had missed that game. Then they come back, back-to-back nights. Philadelphia, who's been playing well lately, was rested. They were there, and Philly just beat the daylights out of them. but no James Harden once again. And it starts you thinking, I wonder what's going on. When this game ended, I looked at my phone and there were text messages there about supposed rumors that were going on. And one of the people courtside from a local TV station in LA had texted me and said, "What do you know about the Harden Garland rumor?" And I said, "Nothing. I'm going to sleep right now."
Good night.
And that's how I left, with the time difference. So when I got up this morning, I wanted to see what was on my phone. And out of respect for them being 3 hours behind us on the West Coast, I did not make phone calls at that time to the people I would have called to say, "Hey, what's going on?" So I then listened to the speculation on ESPN about why these things could happen. And, one of them seems to be, and like I said, this is all me without knowing or talking to anybody.
Right.
One of them seems to be that the salary slots meet up with one another. So it wouldn't involve the third team in the trade. You could do a straight up trade, person one for person one on the other team, and you move on your merry way. James Harden has been so instrumental to this turnaround now for the Clippers, a team that started out 6-21 to start the season out and had everybody scratching their heads like, what's going on there? Then the Chris Paul incident comes up where they basically let Chris Paul go, handled it politically the right way, said they want to give Chris an opportunity to sign with another team, win a championship. He was going to be the third or fourth point guard. Supposedly, this was all explained to him before they signed him. They wanted it to be clear that he may not be a starter. He may not be a reserve. He may be down the bench somewhere. And he was all good with that. That's what I hear from the people in the media out in L.A. Then whatever it was that happened, they decided to go separate ways. Parting probably was the best things for both of them. So that left people scratching their head. The start left people scratching their head. And now the sudden turnaround where they win 15 out of 20 games, 15-5, one of the hottest teams in the NBA, and they're back in the playoff race once again because of this stretch run just before you're getting close to All-Star break. What does this mean? And why would Cleveland want to bring James Harden in, who's a ball-dominant player? He's had a terrific year. James Harden is one of the great scorers in the NBA and has been for throughout his career. He plays best when he has the ball in his hands because he can create. He helps big men become better because he finds them and is willing to either drop it off to them, throw a lob to the rim for them. He makes incredible passes sometimes. You put him in that high middle pick and roll, you got a lot of decisions to make because if you play loose off the big man, Harden stops and hits a 17-footer. If you play up tight, he goes around him or gets fouled and winds up shooting 10, 12, 14 free throws a game, which you make, 12 out of the 14. So he's figured it out. He understands how to use his body. He understands no one is fouled more than he is from behind the three-point line. He goes up. He has a knack for getting his arms into the defender's arms as he shoots that three-pointer. And then if you try to stay away from him, to not put him on the line for 3 free throws, he makes threes. And the turnaround, besides Kawhi Leonard being out of his mind the way he's been playing lately at an MVP level, is James Harden dominating the ball and making the right decisions and bringing this team back. So Cleveland would get a guy who likes to play best with the ball in his hands, but you have a Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland who also needs to touch the basketball because he's such a terrific player. He could make Mobley and Allen better because he's so willing to give the ball up to those big men and finds them and has the eyes and has the skills to get the ball to the big man at the right time, right place. Why would the Clippers want Garland out there? And I don't know if I can answer that because Garland is a little bit smaller version of James Harden. He's not as big, not as strong as Harden. I wouldn't classify either one of them as defensive stoppers. But you don't have many teams that have 5 defensive stoppers on them. Oklahoma City might be the closest thing that you'll find where all 5 guys buy in defensively and get down in the stance and dig in. So there's a difference in age, obviously. Garland can shoot the ball. He makes his free throws. He can get to the rack off the dribble. And the contracts are pretty close to one another. So there's a lot that I don't know about this that obviously I hopefully will find out over the next 24 to 48 hours if it happens.
Yeah. Now, ultimately, I wanted to ask you, you talked a little bit about it, Mike, but should this trade go through, how do you feel about the fit from putting Harden on this Cavs team?
Harden's never missed the playoffs ever in his career. He's made the playoffs every one of the seasons that he's played. And he had gotten the Clippers back into playoff contention. And Cleveland already is, in contention, a serious contender. So what you ask is, if it happened, can he keep Cleveland going in the right direction? Cavs seem to be playing the better basketball right now over the last 4 to 6 games. They made a deal moving Hunter on. My first thought was, why they bringing in a Schroeder when they've got, but maybe they knew that Garland's ankle was not as good as they had hoped. Maybe they were worried that there was more to it than that, and they needed a veteran guy to kind of lead the way from the point guard spot. Were they using him for his money? Because if they put him in a deal that doesn't involve another player coming back, they get that money off that first apron, and now they're below that, which would allow them to do another superstar deal. All these are questions that, why did they do that Hunter deal? Hunter was not having the same season that he had when he first came in. And who knows what's going on behind closed doors, why they would give up on this young man after, trading for him. And everyone thought it was, myself included, it was a great acquisition, we thought, a year ago. Here you are 1 season later, and they're willing to give him up. So they know way more than we do, because they know what the end line is they're trying to get to. We don't know. We'll find that out when it happens.
Well, and I think just from a fit perspective, Mike, the thing, when this first got reported, I was awake last night. I was like, I was kind of like you. I can't handle this right now. But as I've thought about it, I do think there's also this element of the way they've played the Cavaliers specifically, Mike, in this absence of Darius Garland, where once they've gotten at least like Sam Merrill healthy and back, they have been playing. So Donovan Mitchell's been playing the point, basically. He's the point guy. He has been, I think, over this stretch of time, as willing to distribute the basketball. Not that he's ever been unwilling. You wouldn't call him a selfish player by any stretch, but it's kind of been more of a focus as you watch the game, is Donovan's been more of a distributor of the basketball. I think he has been willing to, there's been more possessions than usual where he doesn't even necessarily touch it during this stretch. And I wonder if that isn't just kind of playing into it, and the Cavaliers are starting to play a certain way, and they feel like James Harden can slide in there, because if Donovan's going to be willing to take a role like that, and like you said, if James Harden is willing to be a distributor as well and get Mobley and Allen going, I think that's the big concern. But if those two guys are willing to be distributors, then it can work out.
Well, let's keep in mind that James Harden is coming from playing with Kawhi Leonard. So he understands when the other superstar on the court has it going, you got to get him the ball in his hands. You can't give him 1 shot, 2 shots, and then don't go back in his direction again. He's smart enough to know that. Just like when he's got it going, he expects the ball to be in his hands and expects, people to pass the ball back to him because he's got it going. I'll give you an example about players in the NBA and some of their mentalities about bringing the ball down the court. Even more so today than ever before, because teams are extending their defense, thanks to the Indiana Pacers last year against the Cavaliers, extending their defense, putting more full court pressure on, trying to take time off the clock, trying to force turnovers. So you've got to have a guy that can get the ball up over the half court line in those 8 seconds. Go back a couple of years when the Clippers had Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Neither one of them wanted to bring the ball up the court. They didn't like to have that responsibility, plus the load of having to score a lot of points for them in the half-court area. So they made it known to the front office that, geez, we can get a guard in here that really can dominate things and handle the ball. It takes that pressure off of us. Well, what the Clippers do? They went out and got James Harden, right? And this could be another similar thing where Donovan is saying, to front office, look, I don't mind being a distributor. I don't mind bringing it down the court, but it does put more wear and tear, especially when the guards are picking them up in the backcourt, turning them, putting pressure on them, hands all over, trying to make an entry pass. Or the next decision is, I'm just going to blow by the guy. Now everybody says he doesn't share the ball. He's ball dominant.
Right.
When a guy gets up into your body, you got a couple things you can do. Get rid of the ball, move without it, or blow by the guy, attack him, put fouls on that, the opposition. So that could be part of, why Donovan may have expressed himself and said, it'd be good if we got another guy here that can do this and takes the pressure off me.
Well, listen, again, didn't really plan on this being the topic of conversation with you when we had John, but with you being the analyst for the Clippers and the Cavaliers, it just seemed fortuitous timing for us to talk about it. And listen, if this trade goes down relatively soon, it'll be pretty easy for both Darius Garland and James Harden. They're just going to have to walk down the hallway because the Cavaliers are playing the Clippers on Wednesday. So we'll see what happens there. But Mike, really, we wanted to bring you in and just have a little bit of fun looking back at your time and talking about you a little bit here on episode 300. And it wouldn't be a Cleveland-based show without us having to throw one thing about the Browns in there. So when reading up on Mike Fratello and refreshing myself, obviously you growing up in New Jersey, multi-sport athlete, you were a pretty phenomenal center. You were a football center growing up in New Jersey. And I guess my question for you is, you got any juice left in the tank? Because the Browns could use some help. And you were a pretty special talent at that position growing up. Any juice left?
Well, let me explain that I played for one of the great coaches in New Jersey, Tom Delatorre. And just to give you an idea of what Tom Delatorre was about, one of his closest friends was a gentleman named Vince Lombardi. So it might kind of give you an attitude.
Sure.
If I told you that we wore high top cleats, if I told you that we had leather helmets that we played in, if I told you you got 1 bar or 2 bars across your face mask, you had to earn a cage. Okay, you had to earn that with your play. And we were the last single wing football team in New Jersey.
Oh, man.
Because of Tom Delatorre. Unbalanced line to the right. Which means for our listeners, you had the center position, and to the left of the center, you had the guard and an end. To the right of the center, you had a guard, an inside tackle, outside tackle, and an end. And then in the backfield, you had nobody under the center. You had 2 guys about 3 yards back, and then 2 running backs off to the right side. And the center, which I had to snap the ball back on every play, 3.5 yards, unless it was an extra point or a field goal attempt or a punt coming up. So the center just got the daylights beat out of him every game.
Right.
Okay. So that's what I was able to do for the team, get the ball back. And then after that, it was lights out most days,
I mean, you earned your cage then, right? Or did your face have to get a little bloody before that happened?
I didn't get a cage until my junior year because I started on the defensive side of the ball, and I was the backup center. And then in my senior year, when I went both ways, I had earned my cage by that point.
Oh, my gosh, that is great. You know what? Maybe the Browns should start that. They could use a little toughness like you brought to that team. They should have the guys should have to earn their cages.
I did snap it back for the Browns one day when Bill Belichick was here.
Oh, my gosh.
He invited me to practice one day, and they doubted whether I could still snap the ball back. So I got down in the stands, put my head down through my legs, and found the guy back there, whatever it was, 10 yards back. So I remember there were a lot of days in the basement where you held the ball and just spun it and spun it and spun it. And then if you turned around and you snapped it off the cinder blocks in your basement, you had them marked with numbers. And if you were trying to hit 3, if you were trying to hit 1, if you were trying to hit 4, a lot of snaps down the base.
A lot of practice.
All the snaps. So obviously you get into coaching. You have your first head coaching NBA stint with the Atlanta Hawks, and it was a successful stint. You were the NBA Coach of the Year back in 1985, and a lot of great players that you got to coach as part of the Hawks. But obviously, us here in Cleveland, looking back at your time, I think it's a really interesting time that you came in with the Cavaliers because, like you said, you came in. I believe your first year coaching the Cavs was the last year, so '93, the last year at the Richfield Coliseum. So you got to have an experience there. But it was the end of that stretch, towards the end of it, with Price and Doherty and those awesome teams and those teams that we looked so fondly on back then. And you were kind of the head man in charge of the transition from that period to the next period. But just talk about what led up to your taking the Cavaliers coaching job and what made the job attractive to you.
One of the disappointments for me was that I never got to coach the team that I was brought in to coach. After Lenny Wilkins did such an incredibly great job with the team, we kind of switched positions. I came from Atlanta to Cleveland. He went from Cleveland to Atlanta.
That's right.
And, Lenny was a great coach, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame player. And that team, everybody remembers the shot by Michael Jordan and him pumping his fist in the air and Craig Elo on the ground about to cry. Little did he know that would be shown another 10 million times to the rest of the world. After
I bet he's never heard about it after that, right?
He never heard another thing.
Yeah.
But when I was hired by Mr. Gunn and Wayne Embry to come in, you had this core of players that were outstanding players who had won a lot of games, and I was supposed to come in and whatever I tweaked, whatever I might have changed, I think I knew enough that don't mess with something that's good. And Lenny had a lot of good that he had put into that team, so tried to leave things in place. But little did we know that here's how it started out for me. First day of training camp, and I had been hearing over and over again when I was hired about this young guard that is going to be the heir apparent to Mark Price's position down the road. His name was Terrell Brandon. Yeah. So I was anxious to see Terrell play. And first day of practice, training camp, getting ready, and the trainer comes out, and I said, we missing anybody? Everybody good to go? He said, Terrell Brandon's inside kind of vomiting a whole lot. He's very sick. He said, I'm taking him to the hospital right now.
Oh, wow.
I said, okay. Terrell goes and they test, and he has mononucleosis and didn't play for us for almost 3 months.
Yep.
And I remember the first day back that he was allowed on the court, we put him in the 5 shooting spots: corner, foul line extended, top of the circle, foul line extended, corner, not running, but walking to each spot. And at the end of the 5th spot, he was exhausted. That's how that's how much the mono had taken out of him. So much for that bullet point guard that was Mark Price's backup. Then we got 2 or 3 days into training camp, and Larry Nance has his first serious injury of his career with his knee, and they operate on Nance. This is in training camp. So you have no Terrell. You have Nance out for 6 to 8, 10 weeks, whatever it was going to be. We get 50 games into the season, and Brad Daugherty blows up the 2 discs in his back and retires from the NBA. 28-year-old, 5-time All-Star, retires. Now we got not only Terrell, not only Nance, but now Daugherty retires. Nance comes back to finish the last X number of games of the season, and we make the playoffs. But before we got to the playoffs, Nance has his second knee surgery, which he retired. So Daugherty retired, Nance retired, Terrell is Terrell with the mono trying to recover. We wind up lucky enough, we make the playoffs. The guys played great to give us a chance. We make the playoffs. Our first round opponent is some team named Chicago, and they were the short series. So we'll go to practice, and in the first day of practice, Hot Rod Williams, who's 6'11", 6th man coming off the bench, now starter because Daugherty's not there anymore and Nance isn't there anymore. Hot Rod breaks his thumb in the first day of practice for the playoffs. No Nance, no Daugherty, no Hot Rod, no Terrell Brandon, and we go in and play Chicago. And to their credit, and if do we have time? Can I tell a quick story?
Tell it.
Sure.
Tell it.
We're looking for a guy we need a big man. We're going into Chicago series. Wayne says, what do you want to do? I said, help, find somebody.
Yeah.
So Wayne
That's your
calls,
job.
Wayne says, I've got somebody for you. I said, who do you have? He said, do you remember Tim Kempton? Tim played at Notre Dame, if you remember him. When he'd play, he'd be fire engine red, okay? And that red hair. So he said, you remember Tim Kempton? I said, yeah, I remember Tim Kempton. He said, well, he's been playing over in Europe, but he just got back. He said, he could give us a couple of minutes. I said, can I call him? Yeah. So I called Tim. Tim, we're in tough shape with big men. Do you think you can give us maybe 10 minutes a game? 5 in the first half, 5 in the second half. He said, look, I've been back about 3 weeks. I've been drinking a couple of beers, but he said, I can give you 10 minutes. I said, all right, you're coming in here. So Kempton, we sign him. He comes in. We had 2 or 3 more days of practice left because we had like 4 or 5 days off before you played the first game back then. He comes in. We go to Chicago to play the first game. Ronnie Rothstein is one of my assistants at that time. Richie Adebato, the other assistant. And we're on the bench. We are playing Chicago in Chicago, tooth and nail. We're down 2 points, 3 points, 2 points, 3. So Ronnie Rothstein hits me with an elbow, and he said, look at Kempton on the floor. I said, what about him? He said, he's going to die. He's going to die soon. He said he's beyond red, whatever that next color is. He said, you've had him on the floor now for 8 straight minutes. He said, he's probably played 28 or 30 in the game. He said, you got to get him out and give him a blow. I looked up at the clock. I looked at the score. I said, we're only down 2 or 3. We only have 2 minutes to go in the game. I said, let's roll dice and leave him out there. And to this day, anytime I see Tim, because he's broadcasting for the Phoenix Suns, every time I see him, he said, you tried to kill me, didn't you? He said, you tried to kill me. He said, I couldn't breathe on the floor. I said, no, I was monitoring you. Don't worry about it. I was monitoring you. Yeah. So anyhow, we go on and we lose that series, but it started the rebuilding process. Right after year 1, the next year, believe it or not, Gerald Wilkins tears his Achilles tendon in training camp. Mark Price breaks his wrist. So all 5 of those great players had some type of injury that was a devastating injury. And at the end or during year 2, we started to make moves to rebuild the team. And that following group, after the Mark Price, Doherty, Nance, Hot Rod group, that following group was Terrell, Bobby Phills, Chris Mills. Then we brought in Michael Cage. We brought in Tyrone Hill. We were trying to Danny Ferry. I can't forget Danny Ferry.
Yeah.
Well, that was our start. No, I mean, Danny. Hey, by the way, let's think about this. Danny Ferry may have been one of the first stretch fours.
Yeah.
Stretch fours back then. That wasn't the common thing, but we played him that way. We used him in that high pick and roll, step back behind the 3-point line. Danny Ferry was a 6'10" guy who could make a 3-point shot. And look what the league is growing into now. So, that group made the playoffs, which I was extremely proud of that group. So that was the second group that carried us into 2 years. And then the third group was the 4 rookies who all made the NBA All-Star weekend with the freshman sophomore team. Brevin Knight, Anderson from Kentucky, Cedric Henderson, and Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Potapinko was in with that group also. And that's a group that they made the playoffs. And Sean Kemp was the only team in the league that had enough money to go out and get Sean Kemp, and Mr. Gunn said, let's go get him. And he made the All-Star team. Yeah. And he came in a little bit overweight, worked every day, came back at night, worked again, got himself down to 282. I found the bubblegum card, a Sean Kemp bubblegum card. And I walked into practice one day and I called him over. I said, Sean, I said, you know this guy? Sean was like, oh, yeah, coach. I said, I turned it over and I said, it
Oh,
says
no.
this guy was 265. I said, where is that guy? He said, Coach, I haven't been 265 since high school.
The guy's still in Seattle.
To his credit, he worked, got his weight down to 282, made the All-Star team. To his credit, you had these 4 rookies playing all these minutes around this veteran guy. We had Person, if you remember, not Chuck Person.
Wesley.
Okay, Wesley. And that was our group, and they made the playoffs that year. I was so proud of them.
Mike, I'm so curious. I want to go back to the start of that coaching tenure in Cleveland now, right? Your teams were known for playing suffocating defense and kind of like a slower half-court offense, right? Now, you saying you didn't get to coach the team that you wanted to coach, that you got hired to coach, was that always going to be the style? Was that the plan going in, or was it going to be different if you got to coach the team you coached?
That was never the plan. We were a team that, in all seriousness, we were a team that could score points when everybody was healthy. If you can't score points and you've got Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, Larry Nance, Hot Rod Williams, Gerald, if you can't score points, there's something wrong with you. You don't have to say a word and they'll score points every night. But when we lost those guys and we went to that second group that I mentioned, Terrell, Bobby Phills, Chris Mills, Danny Ferry, Michael Cage, that's a different group altogether. And our backups were marginal backups. So, Tony Campbell, Wayne did a great job of finding guys that we could bring in, plug in. A couple of them had experience, a couple didn't. But here's what we did. We went into training camp, telling you just like it was. We went into training camp in year 3, and we ran up and down like we wanted to be the running rebels, okay, of the NBA, the way we played in training camp. We got to the beginning of the season, and we were 0-5, 0-6, 0-7.
Yeah.
And we had a team meeting, and in the team meeting, I had a chart for each game that we lost and tried to show them, here's where we break down. We're in this game, 65-62, and then the other team goes on a 16-2 run. We're in the next game, 79-78, and the other team goes on a 10-0 run. We weren't deep enough. We couldn't sustain that over 48 minutes. I said, I have a proposal for you. We'll do whatever you guys vote on. We'll continue and get better, trying to put points on the board. My idea is, let's take the air out of the ball. Let's play suffocating defense. Be better than any defense in the league. Give up only one shot. We can't give up an offensive rebound. When we go down and play offense, let's throw 5 passes, 6 passes. Nobody in the NBA wants to play against 6 passes. They want to guard 1 pass or 2 passes. And then they say, go ahead, we hurry up and shoot the ball so we can go the other way. I said, let's make it hard on them. If we get a 24-second violation, so be it. We get a couple a game. But we're making them work at the defensive end. And I knew players who talked to me from other teams would say, we hated playing your guys. Because we knew we had to defend. We knew we had to defend for a lot of minutes. And your guys were going to be all over us. And that group for 2 years broke the NBA record, holding opponents under 89 points for 2 consecutive years. Held them to 88.4, 88.6, something like that.
Yeah.
2 consecutive years. That had never been done before in the NBA. That's why we slowed the game down. We had to control how many shots went up. We had to run the show the way we wanted it to go so that we could stay in it and compete and not be out of gas with 5 minutes, 6 minutes to go in the game.
Well, Mike, this is awesome. We're going to get ready to wrap with you. I got 2 quick hitter questions for you before we let you out of here.
Same here.
but Mike, I think one of the other things we talked about, the transition of the team, and what an interesting story that is, that you basically transitioned the team over twice during your time, but you also transitioned out of an old building into a new building. So, did that provide any kind of juice to you guys? Just talk about going from the old cinder block heaven that was Richfield Coliseum to the brand new Gund Arena at the time, the Gateway Complex. I remember being, I was a kid at the time, but it was like the shiny new object in downtown Cleveland. Everybody talked about the Gateway Complex, and just what that transition was like for you and the guys.
I'm not sure I really comprehended the layout of Cleveland, Akron, Canton, all of that. I just knew that getting to the old Coliseum was a good ride, depending on where you lived. I knew
and that was just the driveway.
Yes, to get around the parking lot and everything. But then I knew we had the other building in progress to move downtown. And think about how many cities have gone to a plan similar to Cleveland. You have your baseball stadium, you have your basketball arena, you have your football stadium. It's all in downtown. How many cities have gone to that now, putting their sports venues in the same proximity in a downtown area? So I thought it was great for the revitalization of downtown Cleveland, gave people a place to go to, okay, an identity with downtown Cleveland. And the new arena was gorgeous. Look, they kept the Coliseum in great shape, I thought. After the 20 years, whatever they were in there, I thought it was still in great shape. But, there was asbestos in the walls of the practice facility upstairs, things that, maybe we should change that a little bit. So the downtown one made a lot of sense. And they could say I closed up one and opened up another one, however you want to look at it. But it was good moving to downtown Cleveland. I enjoyed that.
All right, I got one more for you, and it's non-Cavs related, but it's the first time I'm hearing this story. I mean, there's many funny stories that I found, Mike, but I got to ask you about this one. What was, and I'm sure you've talked about it a lot, but it's my first time hearing it. But what was your reaction when Barkley realized he called the wrong person?
On what? Help me out.
Oh, he said he meant to call Steve Fiorello, but he called you instead to talk about the Browns.
Yeah, well, Charles is okay. I'm sorry. Charles is a great friend. He's a loyal person. If you're a friend of Charles Barkley's, he'll do anything for you. As he's one of the people who has an open pass to say anything he wants to in the United States of America.
Yeah, sure does.
And get away with it. But he's that's Charles. He's being honest. But I'm very fortunate. I enjoyed competing against him. We were in the car together, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Danny Ainge, and myself, going to play golf. I don't golf, but I was allowed to go and watch them.
Oh my God.
That was a privilege that they gave me. And that must have happened the night before, after the second or third wine, that they said. But in the car, Ainge reveals to Barkley, I'm going to sign with Phoenix. Charles didn't know it. So he said, I'm going to sign with Phoenix. So it's going to be Barkley and Ainge on that Phoenix team that they had, which was a terrific Phoenix team. And Michael's driving.
That's awesome.
Michael never wavered, never blinked, never turned his head. He just said, not going to make any difference. You're still not going to win the championship.
And he was right. And he was right.
I'll tell you, if it would have gone to a game 7, I'm not sure Chicago was exhausted.
Toast.
They were exhausted in game 6. That offensive rebound by Grant, Grant got the offensive rebound. He was so tired. He looked at the rim and went, I'm not going to even try and shoot it. He kicks it back outside. Boom, catch 3. And they wound up winning the game, Chicago, and they won the championship in game 6. But they were on their last lap, I tell you, at that time.
Yeah, they sure were. Hey, Mike Fratello, this has been very fun, just a fun walk down memory lane. And again, thank you for all your insights at the beginning. Again, we didn't really know we were going to be talking about any potential moves between the Clippers and the Cavs, and we'll see if anything actually comes from it. But couldn't get somebody closer to those two teams to talk about it. So this wound up being just perfect. We really appreciate you coming on and joining us for our 300th episode here. And we look forward to listening to more of your analysis with the Cavs. And listen, for your sake, I hope you get to spend more time with the Clippers during these months, because it has been brutal here. And then you can come back in the spring for the Cavs.
Guys, can I say one thing before we get off? I want to tell you how fortunate I was. Think about this. On 3 franchises, Atlanta, Cleveland, and Memphis, all right, I was fortunate enough to work with well, Ted Turner was the owner of the Atlanta Hawks and the Braves, the baseball team at that time, and something called TBS and then CNN, et cetera, et cetera. So I worked with that great owner, and my general manager / president was Stan Kasten, who was the president of the Dodgers now, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Right.
And he put the deal together for the sale of the Dodgers the first time it went up for sale. So there's the first place. Then I get to Cleveland, and we've got Gordon Gunn, who transitions then to Dan Gilbert, two of the greatest owners you can have. And I work for Wayne Embry, one of the greatest GMs, presidents you're ever going to have. And then I go to Memphis, where the president and GM is Jerry West. Okay.
Right.
And the owner of the team was Michael Heisley, who you may not know him, but Michael Heisley was an unbelievable person. That's who I worked for. And that's never mind my staffs that I had at each, my coaching staffs. So I was a blessed individual.
Oh, well, and you know what? You won a lot of games for a lot of those people, and you made a lot of playoff appearances for those people as well. So I think they would speak pretty highly right back at you, Coach.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you again very much for coming on with us. Mike Fratello, former coach of the Cavaliers. Again, we still look forward to hearing you talking about the Cavs as an analyst on the broadcasts, and we'll catch up with you down the line. Thank you again so much for coming on with us.
Thank you.
How about a big shout out to Coach Mike Fratello, formerly of the Cavaliers and everywhere else, but man, just so much good stuff. And I love doing these episode 100, 200, 300, just the walks down memory lane. I maybe forgot to mention that we're going to keep you up a little bit late tonight, but the conversations are awesome, and it starts with a bang with Mike Fratello. And guys, not a lot of time between interviews here because we don't want to keep people up too late. But let's go back to the beginning of that, because I think this is such a good point. Phil, I don't know what you're on tonight, but you're on like just only good points all night by Phil. It's not a bot. Maybe you're a bot, but like the good kind. Class dude for recognizing the folks that employed him. He didn't have to do that like that. Yeah. It shows you what kind of guy he is. It shows you why he is a Lifetime Achievement Award winner. But let's go back to the beginning part of that, because we talked about at the time, it was the potential trade of Darius Garland and James Harden. And then it became the trade of Darius Garland for James Harden. And I wish all Cavs fans would watch his explanation of that, because I'll tell you, when the rumors came down that the Cavs were potentially interested in that deal, I wasn't thrilled about it. And then I sat on it for a minute and I thought, man, I do like Darius Garland, but also the injury history, the size impact with him and Donovan Mitchell being small, all that kind of stuff. All right, I can maybe see why they're kind of thinking about what they're thinking about. And then we did that interview with him, and I listened to him as a coach talking about the impact of James Harden and talking about what it's meant for the Clippers' turnaround to their season, and talking about how James Harden is not necessarily the selfish player that everybody kind of assumes that he is, that he likes to get guys involved, Mike Fratello is telling you in that interview that if you're a Cavs fan, you should be pretty damn excited about what the acquisition of James Harden means for Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, because James Harden makes big men better, and he has everywhere he's gone. That part was awesome. So guys, obviously we know the trade has happened. Chad, I want to make sure before you talk that you're on mute, because you're doing a lot of like sniffling and sneezing and stuff, and I hope you're okay over there. But guys, let's just talk about that trade for a minute, because we know they made the trade. Getting ready in about a half hour. The Cavs and Clippers are tipping off in a half hour. We'll see the debuts of Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder. The Cavaliers today traded away Lonzo Ball for literally nothing.
Yeah.
They traded Lonzo Ball and 2 second-round picks for nothing in return. That is my favorite of all time. But obviously the big deal is James Harden going to be a Cavalier. So I don't know. You heard the way he talked about it. What were your guys' initial thoughts, and where do you stand now?
The team's been so just average, below average this year. They've definitely had a better stretch as of late. And obviously there's a lot of injuries going on with the team, and they're trying to get healthy. But, at some point, I don't know. I just like, I hate to feel gross saying this, but like, I really wanted this core of 4 to like work and like develop into that like just perennial like playoff threat and contender. And I think we are seeing a lot of cracks in it, particularly on the health side with Darius Garland. I think that's a real legitimate concern when he's only on the court for 40 to 60 games a year. That's even generous. You just need somebody more reliable, and I'm not into the weeds on basketball as much, so I'm not going to talk about the size thing. But like, obviously you get a guy like James Harden who's like you talked about, never missed the playoffs. That is always a great kind of presence to bring onto the team, and sounds like he's not a selfish guy. I don't particularly like love his style of play, but kind of the guy that you want on your team, maybe.
I don't know. If anybody has any concerns about Harden on the basketball court, actually his basketball performance, I think they're kind of high, unless they're talking about the playoffs, right? I mean, it could, because his playoff performances in the past, he hasn't really shown up in most crucial moments. He'll have a good game 1, a good game 2, but then, come game 6, game 7, he hasn't really performed. But when it comes to, regular season production, I think this is an incredible move for the Cavs. I think everybody's concerns with him are things that don't have to do with basketball, right? The personality wise, right? He's quit on 4 different teams now.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the biggest concerns the Cavs
Yes.
fans. I mean, if you want to tell me that, sure, I'll listen to that. But performance wise, I mean, he's still playing at an elite level at 36 years of age. So, I mean, he's 36 and nobody can still stay in front of him. I mean, he's a pass first type of guy too. But if he's hot, you heard Mike Fratello, he's gonna knock down shots for you too. So, I think most of the concern is everything that doesn't have to do with his performance on the basketball court, unless you're talking about postseason.
And I think it's fair. Houston built a team around him. Didn't work. Philly built a team around him and Embiid. Didn't work. Brooklyn built a team around him. Didn't work. LA built a team around him. Didn't work. So, yeah, listen, that is fair. But the Cavs aren't building a team around him. He is joining a team that's established. And I think there's going to be some accountability on the players' front as far as that is concerned. And we're going to find out. He talks a good game. Listen, I really like what it means for the Cavaliers on the court. But he's talking a good game about he's 36 and he's never won a championship. He's talking a really good game about what that means to him. We're going to find out what it really means to him, because he's got a shot here. This team, as constructed, has a chance to win a championship. He is that big of a difference maker. When he's playing well, he's that big of a difference maker for a team like the Cavs. So we're going to see how serious he is, because if he comes in and just puts all the effort in and doesn't quit on the team, this will be a beautiful thing. I also think my last thing on this before we get to our next interview, people are afraid of whether he can coexist with Donovan Mitchell, 2 guys that like to have the ball in their hands. Yes, 1,000%. A, James Harden has spent his whole career playing with guys who want the ball in their hands. But also B, I think people are worried too much about on the court. And the reality is, what I love about this is you can put Donovan Mitchell on the bench and give him a break for a minute, and you're going to have a guy out on the court you really have to worry about if you're the opposing defense. And then you can put Harden on the bench and give him a break for a minute, and you're going to have a guy in Donovan Mitchell that the opposing defense is really going to have to worry about out on the court. It doesn't give the opposing team any time to rest or relax. You've always got one of the top 20 players in the NBA out on the court at all times.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my final thing is maybe he's turned over a new leaf. We'll see. You talked about with that, I've never won a championship. I mean, for so long, he's led the league in decisions made for himself. So maybe now, he's made now that he's made almost $500 million in his career, maybe now he's finally really trying to go for a ring.
Yeah. Well, we will find out again. The Cavaliers have made a few moves. DeAndre Hunter goes for Schroeder and Ellis. We should see them tonight as they tip off at 10:30. Obviously, the big deal with Garland and James Harden. And then today, again, trading Lonzo Ball and 2 second-round picks for nothing. Not a thing in return. Now, obviously, it's a tax deal. But we'll see. We'll see if the Cavs are done or if they are still going to make moves. I think they could be still concerned about getting out of the second apron. And I think they could still be players in bigger moves. I don't know if they will be, but I think they could be. All right, boys, let's roll into our next topic. And if you noticed last week, the Trucks pulled out of Cleveland. It's always a good day when the Trucks pull out of Cleveland. Because you
What's
that? I like how you just went full silhouette there. That was so you were so
yeah,
dark.
right? Anonymous interview.
My little influencer, like, yeah.
No, you were so
Hold on, wait.
You got a voice changer?
Let's go to our next topic.
Yeah, I saw the murder happen.
Yeah.
That was awesome. When the Trucks pull out, it means it's almost baseball time. The equipment got taken out to Arizona, and it's about spring training time out in Arizona. So we wanted people to get going and get ready for baseball season. And so we brought in one of my all-time favorite Cleveland baseball players. And I'll tell a story on it. But we brought in a guy that I was.
Fuck. All right.
Oh, man, I love this. Look, we're protecting his identity.
Yeah. Yes. You never know.
We brought in a guy that was just a complete slugger for the Cleveland Indians at a time where they needed it, and a fun transition time. And he's a guy that had longevity with the Cleveland Indians that a lot of players have not had. He's one of oh God, I want to do this intro so bad, but we keep getting good comments. Sean says you're not protecting anyone with that head.
Yeah. You're protecting other people. Come on.
All right, listen, before more comments come in and distract me, a guy that has longevity that not many have, one of just a handful of players that have started 10 or more opening days with the Cleveland Indians, played most of his career here, then lived here for a while, and just an all-around good guy. And I was so excited when he decided that he would agree to come on. And so we're going to send it over to an interview that Joe and I did, and I use that loosely. Mostly I did with a legendary Cleveland Indian, an all-time slugger. Send it over right now to the talk we had with Travis Hafner. Episode 300 of Garage Beers, and it is just banger after banger after banger here on episode 300. And speaking of bangers, not many people hit as many bangers for the Cleveland Indians over a career than our special guest here, who was with the Indians from the early parts of the 2000s, spent 10 opening days with the Cleveland Indians, and had an awesome career, one of the most fun players to watch for Cleveland Indians history. We're very excited to bring him in. It's Travis Hafner. Travis Hafner, welcome on into the Garage Beers podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys, and congratulations on the success of the show.
Hey, listen, man, we appreciate you, but I have to start with a little personal story here, because I would always imagine, I have no idea what it's like to be able to hit a baseball 500 feet, or to be able to spend that many years in the major leagues and achieve that. But I would imagine when you really think back to being a professional baseball player and one that was so prolific, especially here in the city of Cleveland, that it's got to be cool just from a regular guy moment every now and then to think, man, people tell stories about me. Like, people look back and they're like, remember when Travis Hafner did this? But I've got my own, and I want to share it to you because it was cool. You get traded to the Cleveland Indians from the Texas Rangers. And I went to one of your first games in Cleveland. And I'm an 18-year-old kid. Not that it was much younger than you. I think you were, 25, 26, something like that at the time.
Yeah.
And I go to your first game, and I remember looking at my buddy. I'm a senior in high school. I go, that guy. That guy, you just got to the team. I go, that guy. Maybe it's because I saw you against the Indians the year before when you were with the Rangers and you destroyed us in the game. But I was like, there's something about that guy. And we leave the game and we're walking down East 9th Street, and we walk by the player parking lot. And you're standing there signing autographs. And I didn't have anything for you to autograph it. I don't remember what prompted me to do this. I just remember I walked up to you as an 18-year-old kid and I said, hey, you're going to be awesome. Please don't ever leave. And I remember this like it was yesterday. And you had the most genuine reaction. Maybe this is why I remember. You looked up at me like, you were like, in the middle of signing autographs, you were like, well, I plan on not leaving, but thank you. And then you just went about signing your autographs. It's so funny how things stick with you, though. And I can still tell that story and see that night. To this day, I'm 40 years old. I can still see that night. So I'm glad you never, I just want to say, all these years later, thank you for not leaving for all those years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cool story. Cleveland was great. I loved playing there. I always enjoyed signing after games in that parking lot. And, you get to hear people's story and chat them up, and it's a lot of the same people. And, you get to know those people. And just that's kind of just one of the special things is having those relationships with fans as well.
So, Travis, take it back because we want to do some reminiscing with you. But, I mean, we also want to recognize how special this is. We are talking about the player that has hit more home runs than any other player in Major League Baseball history from the state of North Dakota. And we're talking to a valedictorian. I mean, you were a guy, a Mr. Do Everything, but is this true? Is it true that your school that you went to, that you were the valedictorian, didn't have a baseball team?
Yeah.
How?
Whoa.
Can we talk about that for a minute? How do you go from that to mashing almost 50 homers in a year?
Well, I wish I could say we had 1,200 kids in my grade, but we only had 8. So I
wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna say that.
I would say that I was top 10 in my class. But my parents were strict. They wanted me to get good grades, and I actually enjoyed school, especially math. But I love baseball and basketball. I could hit and play basketball just all day. So, back in the day, I didn't have a cell phone or anything like that. You just go play basketball and you would just hit all the time.
Man, so North Dakota, class of 8. And you obviously were a worker. You said your parents were strict, so they obviously instilled some kind of work ethic in you to get to a point. I imagine you've always seemed like a pretty down-to-earth guy. I would imagine you never really forgot the fact that you came from a class of 8 in North Dakota as you made your way to the heights that you reached in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on a farm, so farm work was hard. It was getting up early. It was doing a lot of stuff that you don't want to do. And when I went to junior college, it was kind of very similar. I had really tough coaches, but they were outstanding. They worked as hard, and it just really instilled a strong work ethic in me, and I could see how valuable it is. So when I got into pro ball and in the minor leagues, my goal usually every year was I just want to be the hardest worker on the team. That little plaque at the end of the year when they're hardest worker award, I was just that's the one I want to win. Not MVP, I just want to win the hardest working award, and I thought the rest would take care of itself.
It's like the Rudy Award. It's the Rudy. Just the guy practices his ass off. But
yeah, I just had this thing that I'm never gonna not make it because I didn't work hard enough. And sometimes it was, a little overboard at times, but I was gonna die on that hill. Nobody will ever outwork me.
So obviously here in Cleveland, you're a player that most people will never forget, that especially like us, man, growing up in that time. Joe's a little bit younger, but that is the formative years for Joe too. But just tell us, we always love hearing this story about, you get traded. It's the Ryan Drees and Einar Diaz, I think you were traded for, that get sent down to Texas. You spent, 6 years in the Rangers system. You spent a part of your first year with the Rangers. Again, you hit your first home run off the Indians, which is awesome. But then you get traded after that season. So just talk about, what goes through your mind. You're a young kid. You're just trying to make your way into the major leagues. You got your first taste with the Texas Rangers, and then you find out you're getting dealt to Cleveland. What was that like? If you look back, what's vivid about that to you?
Well, with the Rangers, we had Rafael Palmeiro in the big leagues. We had Carlos Pena in the big leagues. We had Sean Gallagher, who was minor league player of the year. And then we just drafted, and then we just drafted Mark Teixeira. So
he was all right.
Yeah. So you get traded to Cleveland. Jim Thome had just left, and you're wow, this is, I couldn't ask for a better situation to go to Cleveland. They're looking for a first baseman, and I feel like I'm ready for the opportunity. So for me, it was perfect situation to come into.
Yeah, so you do, and I think it was a really, I always wondered, I think it must have been, it's kind of a weird time to start with the Indians because they come off of this run from the 90s. They were this powerhouse team, and your first year with the Indians was 2003. And so we are literally just getting over the heartbreak of Jim Thome. And sorry, Joe. Sorry, I can see it in your face. It crushes you a little bit every time. But there's this fan base that's sold out the stadium for every game for years, and they're not used to. It's 10 years of being spoiled, and they weren't used to kind of a drop back. But then here comes this young squad, and I don't think anybody really knew what they had when you were coming up, and you're in the Milton Bradley years is kind of the best way to explain it. But you've got this kind of core coming up, but just. Was it kind of a weird time to join the team after that big run, and then you kind of have this load to carry to try to get them back to that spot?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a time, like a rebuild, a restart. We had a lot of young players. Like I remember, like Brandon Phillips, Ben Broussard, and then eventually it was like Victor Martinez, Grady Sizemore, and Casey Blake came over, and like we had a Jake Westbrook. We had and Cece was there obviously. So it was like a good young core in place. Like we just kind of needed some time to, play together, get some experience under our belts, and then in a couple of years we were kind of in the mix again.
Travis, I think it's fitting for you. I talked about your first year, but I got to know how we got to these things. Because I also worked. I was at Westgate Mall. I worked at the Indians team shop at the time. That's what I did at high school. And I remember slinging Travis Hafner T-shirt jerseys. Number 32, I had one. Number 32, Travis Hafner. Where did 32 come? You went like fullback numbers with your jersey numbers. You went 32 and then you switched to 48. Was there a story behind that?
Yeah. Some of the stuff that goes through my mind, just like I don't even know that people can relate to it. So I get to Cleveland and they're like, here's number 32. And I'm like, okay, like, what am I going to say? Like, you're a rookie in the big league, I'll take it. That sounds great. And then rough first half, play better the second half. And then I think I go in there and be like, hey, do you care if I get a number in the 40s? And they're like, it's really hard to do that after you've already kind of played. And I was like, well, in the minor leagues, I had 1 year that I was in the 50s and I stunk. And then like 3 or 4 years where I was in the 40s and I like did really well. So if I could just get a number in the 40s, like I promise you that I'll play well. So it was a little bit of an ordeal to like get a number in the 40s. But I got 48 and, I was happy with that.
Everybody in the merch department's like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. But yeah, I just give me a number in the 40s. That's all I ask.
You probably made them more money doing that. That everybody that bought your stuff with 32 had to go out and buy new 48 stuff.
Yeah, I don't know that too many people bought the 32s.
I had one.
Maybe a couple.
I wish I was still the same
my
size
parents,
I was.
My aunt and uncle.
There's a lot of 32 jerseys floating around North Dakota. So, you obviously, you come out that first year, you talked about it, and we've had some of those guys on. Ben Broussard was awesome, although I felt like he was going to break his guitar out and sing us a song around the campfire. But did you kind of know early on? You said there were some of those pieces, right? CC was already established by that 2003 year. I'll never forget that 2001 year for him, his rookie year, where he got robbed of the rookie of the year by a guy that was like a 14-year veteran. No, just kidding. I really love Ichiro anyways. But did you kind of know, like, did you know any of the young guys coming up, the Gradys and the Victors? And I know they played a little bit. Victor did that first year with you a little bit, but did you know, like, did you get an inkling that, hey, this team, we might only win, I think you won 64 games or something like that in 2003. We might only win 64 games this year, but there's a lot of pieces that are coming.
Yeah, you definitely got that sense. I mean, there's a lot of top prospects. You can see the talent, like the physical gifts. All those guys, like they can all play. It's just the hardest thing is like getting acclimated to the big leagues. And consistency is probably the toughest thing, just being able to do it day in and day out, as opposed to, he gets hot for a week and then he goes, in the tank for a month. So just, I think consistency and getting some experience underneath our belt. And, Eric Wedge was great at managing and kind of building expectations. And he was a great motivator and, he did a good job getting us ready to play.
Travis, what does it take? For somebody, you've seen a lot of guys come through professional sports, Major League Baseball, And you see a lot of guys that'll maybe come up and they'll have that kind of spark that first year, and they'll hit maybe 20 homers and they'll show that flash, and then it fizzles. And you showed that flash, and then especially you start getting into the meat of your career, but you show that flash, and then it's just consistently, until some injuries start happening, it is just consistently, we're talking about MVP style numbers out of you. Is there like a moment out of you that you remember, like, oh, is there like a time you can look back and go, oh, I got this. Like I belong here. I'm going to mash for the rest of my career. And what does it take to stay at that level?
Yeah, I think the second half of my first full season, where I started having some success against righties and lefties, and have some success against some good pitchers, and feel like you see them pretty well, and you're like, yeah, I think I have a chance if I work hard to be pretty consistent up here and to be a good hitter. And then it's just, a lot of it is just work ethic and keep making adjustments and have that desire to always get better. I think sometimes you see guys come up and maybe they have like a really good first year and they let their guard down a little bit. They might think like, I'm gonna be really good, and the game is extremely humbling. So you can see that from a distance. Like I think Derek Jeter was hitting under 200 one year at the All-Star break, was what I've heard, and just like, it's a very humbling game. So you have to stay on top of it, and you have to come ready to play like every single day. And I felt like that was, like, mentally, I felt like I was pretty good at just coming to play every day and like not ever wanting to give an at bat away.
At your peak, when we're talking about, I think, what year did you finish? You finished top 5 in MVP voting. And then your next year, that was maybe 2005, 2006. I think you were even better. And then I think the injury derailed your career, or your season there at the end. I think it was the broken hand. Yeah. But like, when you talk about at your peak, because I tend to agree with this. I think one of the hardest things to do in sports, you're a basketball guy too, but one of the hardest things, I think the hardest thing to do in all of sports is, it has to be to hit up like 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I have no idea how you guys do that. But when you're at your peak, is there just a mental shift for you? Like, do you just go out there feeling like, I'm going to eat this guy's lunch today? Like, there's no shot that this guy's got against me.
Like, you're extremely confident. Like, obviously you have to be confident, but like, you also know that you have to stay like incredibly disciplined with your approach. Like, you can't go up there and swing for the fences. You have to get good pitches to hit. So it's like, I feel like it's like an extreme focus every at bat, but like, you feel that if you do that and get good pitches to hit, that you're not going to miss them. So it's confidence, but it's also like kind of like being under control and making sure you don't miss your pitches to hit.
I meant to ask you this before when we talked about you first coming up with the Indians, Travis. It was that transition time. And you still had some of those guys from the 90s years. Omar was still there, I think, your first year. I think Ellis Burks was still around, hanging around there. But were there any guys when you first came up that kind of took you under their wing? Who were the guys that you kind of looked up to in the locker room? Because there were also just a ton of young guys.
Yeah, so Omar Vizquel really helped me. Like, I would play first base sometimes, and I would like throw him ground balls in between innings, and he would like kick the ground balls up with his feet, like turn around, like throw it underneath his legs, like, and just be like right in the chest. And I'm like, this guy feels ground balls with his feet better than I do with my glove. But I was so intense in baseball, and Omar was just like, dude, you got to have some fun or you're going to just burn out. So Omar like really kind of helped me to have fun playing baseball. Like, for me, it was like, fun is doing well and winning, but like, you just can't be that intense. So you can be intense, but he helped me to like channel it a little bit better and have fun. And certainly Ellis Burks helped me a lot with hitting. I was a guy that like always picked the brains of veterans. Like, even, there were times when, some players that I would look up to, you'd play against those guys and you'd try to, meet with them out for BP and just talk a little bit of hitting and pick their brains a little bit. So I certainly tried to, learn as much as I could from the veteran guys.
Yeah. So again, you've got your monster years, 2005. And it's funny to look back now because you feel like there was this lull And it wasn't that big of a lull. I mean, it felt like it at the time because there was that success in the 90s till 2001. There was those couple down years, but 2005 was a fun year, man. 2005 was fun until the very end, until the sun came out in Kansas City at the end of the year. 2005 was a fun year. And 2006 was interesting, but then you get to that 2007 year, and now we've got prime Travis Hafner, and it is one of the most fun things to watch. But you've also got prime Grady Sizemore out there, and prime Victor Martinez, and you got CeCe, and I know he was still Fausto at the time, slinging the rock out there, and that was even the year that I think that was the year Cliff Lee got sent down before he came back for his Cy Young year. But you go into that 2007 year, and you've been through some ups and downs with the club, and you've had your own personal successes, but just talk about the difference in that year when the club was finding so much success and getting to the playoffs and winning in the playoffs and all that. Just what a ride that was.
Yeah, I mean, both 2005 and 2007 were really special years, but 2007, like, things really clicked. Like, we knew what our identity was. Like, our pitching was outstanding. I think we had, I mean, but some of the guys you said, like CeCe, and I think Cliff was there, and Fausto, Jake Westbrook.
Yes.
Maybe Millwood, or maybe Millwood was 05. I'm not 100% sure, but we had like 5 really good starters.
Was Paul Bird there?
Oh, yeah, Paul Bird.
Oh, Paul Bird,
yeah.
Paul Bird, I think, won the clincher in New York.
Yes, he did. It was awesome.
But the health of that staff was incredible. Like, I think, like, I don't even know if they missed any starts. It was amazing. Like, the amount of starts that those 5 guys had was great. So we just knew that if we played good defense and score, a couple runs, they were always going to keep us in games. And we just had this mindset of, like, we're always going to play hard, and we were kind of like grinders and just really competitive. And that was a really fun stretch where, you win the division, you're playing in front of sellout crowds, and then, to go beat New York was really special in the playoffs.
Not just to beat him, Travis. You had a walk-off. You had a walk-off hit against the Yankees in the playoffs. Is that one of the? I always like talking to athletes after their career when you have a chance to reflect on your career, and I think fans will always talk about the moments that they remember. Right? Nobody's ever going. I will never forget, as long as I'm alive. I will never forget Pronk at the time. I don't know if we still use Pronk at all, but at the time, very Pronk heavy here in Cleveland. Lumbering around the bases for a triple to complete the cycle in Minnesota. I will never forget it as long as I live. Obviously, the walk-off against the Yankees in the playoffs, but what are the things that you look back on when you think of your time in Cleveland that are like maybe one or two of like the most special moments for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting you talk about hitting for the cycle, and I just remember, like, we fly from Minnesota back to Cleveland. I was like, I'll be kind of excited to watch SportsCenter and see if they have my cycle on there. And it was like the whole Northeast was in a blackout.
Oh,
so
yeah,
like no electricity. Oh. I was like, dang. But certainly, like, the playoffs, like, that was really special. That was probably the highlight, is just going through the playoffs, beating New York. Unfortunately, one game away from eliminating Boston and getting to the World Series, but just to experience that, playing New York and Boston in the playoffs was awesome. And then, personally, like, whenever I got to like 100 RBIs, that was like one of my goals, I guess, of each season. And then being able to hit 40 home runs was really cool. I wish I wouldn't have missed the last month and, have a chance to get for 50. But, probably like one of the coolest things too, just like randomly, was the 6 grand slams in a season.
Yeah.
That was just something, like a freak thing that just happened to line up perfectly. But that was cool in 2006 as well.
I think like the year before, didn't Ben Broussard have a monster grand slam year like the year before or something like that? I think he hit like 3 or 4 grand slams. Then you come through and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna hit 6. I'm gonna go with 6.
Yeah, I almost feel like that one year, like, our team hit a lot of grand slams, kind of just randomly that year. So
we appreciated you for that. We appreciated you. So in the end, Travis, as we get ready to wind things up with you, but in the end, you're one of only a handful of people still to this day that started 10 opening days with the Cleveland Indians. You have a legacy here And I'm sure you're super well aware of it because you didn't leave here immediately after you left. You were here for a good while after your playing days, but I'm sure you're aware of your legacy. But just as I guess, what does it mean to a player? I think we talk about it as fans because we have pride in our cities and where we're from, and these are our teams, and it's what we root for growing up and all that. We're never really sure what it means to the players. So, from your perspective, as a guy that spent really the majority of your career, we won't talk about the Yankees part, but the majority of your career with a team like the Cleveland Indians in a city like Cleveland, when you look back, I mean, just what does that mean to you, knowing the legacy that you left?
Well, I mean, it's special to be able to spend the majority of your career in one place. You call it home. You know, your house is there. Your kids go to school there. You just kind of know everything about the organization. You know a lot of the fans, and it's just really awesome to be a part of that. So, fortunately, I was one of those guys that got to spend 10 years in one place, and I'm certainly just very thankful for that.
Yeah, well, we're thankful for what you did over those 10 years because, again, one of the most fun players to watch for sure. Last question I have, this is just more for fun. We talked a lot about your career highlights, but 2019, I almost forgot what year that was, 2019 All-Star Game. Do you have the official record for the farthest a person's ever hit a softball? Because I was at that celebrity softball game, and you put one out, like really out of the actual stadium.
Yeah.
Is that a career highlight? That's got to be a career highlight for you, putting one out over the right field fence.
It was pretty cool, and it was something that I actually practiced a little bit for because I was like,
Ooh.
I got to go deep. So I did hit a little bit, like practicing that, and like my first at bat, I popped up, and I know I'm going to get like 2 at bats. So I'm like, man, you can't go like 0 for 2 in a slow pitch softball game. So thankfully, I did. I did hit that home run. I don't know of anybody that's ever hit one out of the stadium, like the baseball part, other than that as well. And I guess what's cool is like, at the time, my kids listened to a little bit of Daddy Yankee. They kind of like the Spanish songs for a little while.
Yeah.
So I was able to say like, I took Daddy Yankee deep.
Yes. All right, my very last question for you, Travis, and this is just more current, and I'm going to guess you're still, you are very involved or in tune to baseball and all that, and I know you got your kids and all that, who I'm sure are young mashers. We should look out for the Hafner name coming up. But just when you think about baseball in its current state and the Cleveland Guardians now, word came down again very recently. I just want to get your take on this as a guy that spent so much of his career here. But we've got this special guy that plays here now. He's going to be on that list of 10 opening days soon, I think. But Jose Ramirez, and you see what he's done in this era where these guys are out there getting these contracts that Cleveland are never going to be able to afford. And then you watch what Jose Ramirez is doing here in Cleveland and just taking these extensions and staying here. Just, I don't know that you've gotten to know him at all. I don't know that you're around the team at all ever, just swinging in, whatever. But just talk about, what a guy like that means and your impressions of Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty special when your best player is like your hardest worker and your biggest hustler. So just that in itself is really special. I actually remember, I think I had just become a special assistant and we went to AAA and Jose had just got sent down. So like, I think he started the year in the big leagues and then kind of struggled and got sent down. So it was actually cool to kind of spend a little bit of time with him and talk to him and then kind of see, him get right in AAA and then go back up and have, amazing career that he's having. Like I tell my kids, like, watch how Jose Ramirez plays. This is how you should play the game. Like he never takes a day off, never takes a play off. The way that he runs the bases, if I'm a rookie on that team and I see Jose Ramirez at, 32 years old running the bases like that, like I know what the standard is. Like,
yeah,
when your best player plays that hard, like, and you're a rookie, like that, you know what the standard is and you got to play that hard as well. And offensively, just, switch hitter, high contact guy, hits the ball out of the ballpark, drives and runs. Like he really does it all. Great defensively. So he's just a fun guy to watch. He's a fun guy to root for. And, I like those guys that can be role models for kids, just you can watch Jose play and just say like, hey, play like Jose. Like, he knows what he's doing. So he's special.
Well, Travis, man, your time in Cleveland was special, filled with great memories that I've got about 700 more of that I wanted to bring up, but I also don't want to keep you here until midnight. So, Travis, man, this was so much fun having you on and just getting to chat with you a little bit. Thank you very much for the trip down memory lane. It was a blast, and we really appreciate you now and everything you did for the Cleveland Indians when you were here.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and congratulations again for your guys' success. This was awesome.
All right. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
Man, how about Travis Hafner coming on with us? You know, Travis is a guy. Okay, there we go. Travis is Chad. It sounded like the tornado from the Wizard of Oz was blowing.
That would be the furnace. Yeah.
Are you heating your home right now?
Yeah. It's where unfortunately, this is where I'm stuck now.
Oh, God. Listen, Travis did one of those things. Okay, so we love. Oh God, this comment from Brown's Bandito, and I don't want to say who it is.
Oh God.
But hey, Joey, that was an epic question you almost asked.
I was going to say,
cool, right?
Great interview, Joe. Perfect interview.
Perfect.
Fuck you, Mike. Great interview.
I thought it went exactly how we planned it.
Peel back the curtain a little bit. We get done with the interview, and Joe looks at me, and we were talking a little bit after the interview. He looks at me and he goes, I just kind of froze up there for a while. I was like, oh, really? Did you? There were a couple. If you go back and watch that again, there were a couple little pauses for me where I was like, Joe. Nope. All right, I'm going to talk.
You got it.
I have to say, just for us being three schmucks doing a podcast that you guys watch, and you guys have said so many freaking cool things about the show in the comments, and I'm reading these, and you have no idea how much we appreciate it. But one of the coolest things that happens is when a guy like Travis Hafner, who he doesn't go on a lot of shows, he told us that. Nope. He was like, I don't really do this very much. And big shout out to the Guardians organization. Curtis Danberg and the crew there at the Guardians organization set that up for us. And they are, man, every time we need something from them, they come through. But we get done with that interview. We kind of go off the air, and Travis sits there for a minute, and he goes, guys, that was a lot of fun. I didn't know podcasts were going to be fun like that. Anytime you want me to come back on with you, just reach out, and I'll come back on. So you'll probably see Travis Hafner on here again with us at some point. I told him, though, I did promise him that I would stop harassing his emails. So, but big shout out, man, Travis Hafner. He is he's, you know what he is, Chad?
What?
He's the equivalent of a hockey enforcer. You don't really have an enforcer in baseball, right?
Right.
But you have mashers. You have guys that strike fear into the hearts of the other team. And Travis Hafner, make no mistake about it, during Travis Hafner's prime, he struck fear into the hearts of opponents. But remember when we've had Jody Shelley on the show, just a classic enforcer in the NHL. But what is Jody Shelley? Just the nicest dude. Yeah. Travis Hafner is almost too nice. He's almost outrageously too nice for a guy that could hit the ball 1 billion feet.
Yep. Right.
Those were good times, though. Those were good times.
Great family fun. Great family fun.
All right, boys. Normally, this part of the show, we would be wrapping up, but we've got one more guest, but we're going to kind of roll into it pretty quickly. Normally, this part of the show, though, we do something called our Asshole of the Week. And I want to open it to you guys if you have one. I'm in too much of a celebratory mood to have an Asshole of the Week. It is episode 300. And nobody's bothering me this week. This and the way this all came together, nobody's bothering me this week. But if you guys have one that you think is funny or that you want to throw out there, Chad, you kind of think everybody's an asshole. So if you got one.
What the fuck? No, you're the asshole for saying that. No. I've been too busy trying to do this this week. Like get 300 going on to really even pay attention to what's going on in the world.
I won't touch into like the Joe Flacco and Shadur Sanders situation, but like I'm just gonna say the Pro Bowl in general. Like, just what a waste of time. I don't want to watch like a field day of adult grown men playing like dodgeball and like what's like the game where you have like carry the bucket over and under like your legs and like I don't know if they do that, but like it's just not good. It's not good to watch. It's not good TV. Like it's cool. There's like players from all teams there, but like the only All-Star game, actually, the NHL All-Star game is pretty good when they have it, and also they had like the Frozen Four, not the Frozen Four. That's hockey, or college. Frozen. What was the one they did last year? The Four Nations face-off.
The Four Nations, yeah, that was awesome.
Obviously, you have the Olympics in lieu of the All-Star break this year. You have the World Baseball Classic coming up this fall. Like, there's so many like cooler things that other sports do to like showcase like talent, and the Pro Bowl is just like a shitty way to do it.
Yeah, it's like they did the opposite. Like, I think everybody went, well, we got to do something a little different than having dudes get torn ACLs in the Pro Bowl. Like that shouldn't happen. Right. But they took it too far. They took it a little too far. Having said that, congrats to our Browns Pro Bowlers. And the
distinction is different than the events.
Yeah, and listen, when it comes to the awards that matter in the NFL, it's the All Pro awards that really matter. And the Pro Bowl doesn't carry nearly as much weight as emphasized by this year. But like whether it's Myles Garrett, who's going to be the defensive player of the year, or whether it's Denzel Ward, who's just an outstanding top level corner, or whether it's Shedeur Sanders, who went down there and got to like spend a little time with the top level talent that was there in the NFL. And I don't think it's a bad thing for a kid. Did Shedeur Sanders earn it? No. He would tell you that. I think he would tell you that. I think if you went to Shedeur Sanders and said, hey, if everybody like was like, I want to be a Pro Bowler, do you think you deserve to be in the Pro Bowl? He would say no. But he was for a lot of reasons. And I think it's great that he was there. I think it's great that he was there. I think it was great that he was interacting with players from other teams that were there. I think it's a growth opportunity for him. But like the Pro Bowl in general, yeah, blah. I didn't even watch any of the Pro Bowl stuff. The best event that I saw was the girls' flag football. That was awesome.
I'm excited for that in 2 years.
They were great. Yeah, and by the way, remember that like one of the star players on the U.S. national flag football team is from Elyria. Like she's here.
No way. That's awesome.
She's like a star player. Yeah.
We should get her on.
Oh, good idea. All right. Chad, you're feeling like me. Nobody's been an asshole this week, right?
Yeah, no.
All right. So listen, we've got one more special guest we're going to throw it to. Then we'll bring it back. We will have a cheers of the week as we wrap up. But we've talked about the Cavs. We've talked about the Cleveland Guardians. I'll throw this out here now. Next week, we're going to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets with a legendary Columbus Blue Jacket. We won't reveal it yet, but somebody that very well could have been on this episode, just couldn't make the times work exactly right, but a legend. But right now we're going to throw it to an interview we did with a legendary Cleveland Brown, a guy that for many of us 40 and older, I'll say, is a guy that we grew up watching, a guy that we remember hauling in a bunch of passes from Bernie Kosar, a guy that we remember being just an essential part of those teams that were going to AFC championship games and all that. And he joined us to have a very fun conversation here on the OBR. It's only fitting that we end with a Cleveland Browns guest. So let's send it over to him now. This is a conversation. What?
We should let people know about the telephone game.
Oh, we should. You're right. Hold on. We should do that. All right. So there was a glitch that was happening. It's never happened to us before. So we want you to know this. And we think you're going to be able to hear it. But for some reason, our special guest could not hear the questions that Chad was asking him. He could only hear me. So every time Chad asks a question, you might hear it, and then you might have to hear me translate it. And by translate it, I just mean repeat it, because he just couldn't hear him. So if you think it's weird, you'll see how it goes down because he says it on the show. He just can't hear Chad. Chad's volume would not play to him. And so I repeated Chad's questions to him, and I think it did a pretty good job. And it didn't take anything away from the interview other than we got some fun, weird interactions. So be ready for that as we go. But it didn't take anything away from the fact that you're about to hear from a legendary Cleveland Browns wide receiver. Let's send it off to the interview that Chad and I did with the one and only Brian Brennan. All right, episode 300 here on Garage Beers chugs right along, and we've got another amazing special guest for you here. This time, we're going to take you down to the old Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and we're going to talk to a fan favorite, a guy that made countless memorable plays and was one of the favorite receivers for our buddy Bernie Kosar and those Cleveland Browns teams that so many Clevelanders are still proud of to this day. We're going to bring him in now. It's Brian Brennan. Brian, welcome to the Garage Beers podcast.
Great to be on the podcast. I appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to a chat about walking down old memory lane for me.
Yeah, well, that is the goal, and memory lane. You know, it's hard to think about how long ago it was that you guys were dominating football games down there on the lake. But you know, the first thing we always just like to kind of ask of our guests is just a little bit of your process, because I love the story. I love the story that you're still a Cleveland guy. But you're not like born and raised in Cleveland. So just your process. We know about your college. I know Chad, I'm sure, has like 10 questions about college and Doug Flutie and Boston College and all that. But, you know, just your process of getting to Cleveland and you know, your initial impressions when you heard, it's the 4th round of the draft and I just got picked by the Cleveland Browns. What were you thinking when that happened?
Well, first of all, I grew up in Detroit. I went to Brother Rice High School, which is a high school very similar to some of these big all-boy Catholic schools here in Cleveland, St. Ed, St. Ignatius, very similar. You know, I had some success there as an athlete, and I was recruited, you know, both for basketball and football. But once Boston College came into the picture, you know, I was done. I took trips to Michigan State and Minnesota and Pitt and Syracuse. But once Boston College entered the picture, in Boston, Catholic, education, an opportunity to play quickly. So I chose Boston College, and that was 1980. It's hard to believe when I say 1980. And then, you know, in 81, Doug Flutie showed up, and, you know, I was a receiver, and I feel like I caught more passes from Doug Flutie than anyone, but not the right one. The right one. And I get confused. People confuse me for Gerard Phelan, who was a very good player, a year my junior, and he caught the pass. And you know, they beat Bernie Kosar's team in the famous Flutie Hail Mary pass in and around Thanksgiving there, and it was at late 1983, I believe, 84. Yeah. So, but you know, then I was, I don't know, all AP. And UPI All-American. I got drafted by the Cleveland Browns in 1984. It was a thrill of my life, really, just to be drafted. I don't know why I thought I was going to be drafted by the Miami Dolphins, just some of the conversations I had leading up to the draft, which would have been great. Dan Marino was there, but so I come here in 1984 with Ernest Biner. Ernest Biner was a 12th round draft pick. I was a 4th round draft pick. Don Rogers was our number 1 draft pick that year. And then Sam Rutigliano was the head coach.
Yeah.
But I was just thrilled to be drafted into the NFL. I went to Boston College. I thought to get an education and play a little bit. You know, we have Doug and I have, the team has success, but Doug and I have success. And then I get drafted. 104th player selected in 1984, which I thought was on the lower end. I felt I did well in those combines. They had a couple combines back then. They have one now, but back then they had more than one combine. They had, I believe, one in the Superdome and then one in Seattle. And the West Coast teams, you know, sponsored the one in Seattle, Kingdome, and then in the Superdome was East Coast and Midwestern teams. But I thought I did well in the combine. I get drafted, and then you know, Sam was our coach, and then Marty, and off we went with a lot of wins.
Now, when you going into the draft, did you have an agent telling you? Did you get a sense that you were going to go higher, or how did that whole process play out?
I can't hear Chad. I don't know, Chad, if you're on mute or not, but So I apologize.
Can you hear me now?
Everyone can hear and see me, but Chad, for some reason I can't hear you, but I can hear Mike.
Well, that's okay. I could hear Chad, and I'll just reiterate his question to you. And his question to you was, basically, did you have an did you have an agent that was sitting there telling you, hey, I think you're going to go at this point, or hey, I think you're going to go at that point? Or was it kind of up in the air for you? Did you have an inkling of where you were going to go?
Yeah, so my agent was, of all things, from Cleveland. He was a former IMG guy who represented a number of other players, Brian Sight, some baseball players, Dwayne Kuiper, and a few others. But so I relied on him for information, and his name was Ed Keating. He's passed away at this point, but so Ed, I trusted, and it just seemed the draft, even today's draft, it's about size. I was always fast. I felt 40-yard and all the drills and all that kind of thing. But, I didn't have the, 6 feet, 6'2". That catches everybody's eye. But, the teams that I thought would be interested in me, hopefully the Lions, because I was from Detroit. And then for some reason, the Dolphins were always on the radar for me. And then the other one, when Chuck Knox was up in wasn't that his name, up in Seattle as a head coach.
Oh, yeah.
He's got some Detroit roots. So I thought one of those teams. I never even thought the Browns, but it was, I think, late April, early May, 1984. I get a call from Paul Warfield. I didn't have a phone. It was the hall phone in the dorm. And somebody comes to get me. Paul Warfield's on the phone. So I get on the phone. And Paul, was so gracious. If you ever have spoken to Paul in anybody's who's listening or your lives, he's so eloquent, and he welcomed me. We just drafted you in the 4th round. ESPN they had a little streamer at the bottom of the page on their sports center. There was no real ESPN coverage of the draft, even back in 1984. Right. But anyway, so he goes, I want to welcome you to Cleveland, and I want to put the head coach, Sam Rutigliano, on the phone. And Sam and I talked, and then the next thing, I was in Cleveland for a rookie press conference with all the other draft picks. My first indoctrination to the Cleveland, city of Cleveland.
I love the idea that some kid in the dorm is, Paul Warfield. Sure, yeah, I'll go get Brian. Hold it, please.
It was pretty funny. And, but now, the draft is such a major production, and the NFL is such a draw for just as a product. And they have the draft, and it's, what was in Cleveland, it was great. I think it's in Pittsburgh this year. It'll be great. Yep. I really enjoy watching the first few rounds of that draft live, just because it changes people's lives. It changed my life. I mean, I was a Detroit kid, and then all of a sudden here I am in Cleveland.
Brian, I do think it's interesting, just kind of going back. It's like we're working backwards. But growing up in Detroit, and at the time you did, I think we've become so accustomed to college football being just a national thing. It doesn't matter where you grow up. If you're a player that gets noticed by teams, they're going to come from anywhere to recruit you, right? You could be in Georgia, and here comes Oregon. You could be in Washington, and here comes Miami, and that's how it works now. But back then, it wasn't necessarily always like that when it was teams coming from all over the place. So what was it like? How did Boston College come into the mix? I know why you liked them. You explained really well why you liked them, but how did you get noticed by a team all the way out on the East Coast when you're playing football there in Michigan?
Well, Boston College is a Jesuit school. They recruit the, all-boy Catholic schools in and around the Midwest, which have some powerhouse football, Michigan and Ohio, specifically Chicago. But most of the team, you're right, was from Northeast. A lot of New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Massachusetts. Very few from the South were on the Boston College team when I was there. So, but I know they now draw, across, the South a little bit. I don't think Boston College has very much success out West, but it is a little bit what geographical or parochial to where the city. Boston College was in Boston, obviously Chestnut Hill. So yeah, I think it was the Catholic thing, the Catholics, high school and the Catholic college. So they recruited, some of those powerhouse Midwestern Catholic schools. Brother Rice was one of them.
That's cool. We're going to see if we can hear Chad. I know Chad's got something he wants to say. Let's see if we can hear him.
Can you hear me now, Brian?
Very light, but I can hear you. You'd have to speak up.
Is there
Yell.
So now you talked about catching the wrong pass. Is there a part of you that when you saw that game happen went, damn? But like,
I'll let Mike translate. This will be a third-party question.
That's okay. We're doing third-party questions. Chad wants to know if when you saw the Hail Mary, because you caught the wrong pass, like you said, when you saw the Hail Mary that following year, was there a part of you that was just like, damn, I wish I was there one more year?
I was just thrilled that Boston College won. I love Flutie. I mean, Doug Flutie and I are still very friendly. I see him a few times a year. He lives down in Melbourne, Florida, and my mother is right up the road there in Vero Beach. So I see Doug, and I was just thrilled that because I knew how great of a player he was. I mean, Doug Flutie, I'm 5'10" and a half. He was maybe 5'10", and he played, I think, 22, 23 years in pros. I mean, at least 10 or 15 in the NFL, I would say, a few in the USFL and a few in Canada. So he was an underrated quarterback. He really could throw the football as hard as anybody of the other quarterbacks in the NFL, and certainly had the knack of being a quarterback. He was a very good point guard in basketball, Doug Flutie. You could see, he was a really good athlete. So he played a long time. So so I'm just happy that Boston College beat Miami. I know Bernie, on the other hand, probably wasn't as happy as I was.
No, he wasn't thrilled at that. So obviously, you now make your way here. Now we'll start moving forward, and you're establishing your career here. And the rookie year was kind of weird because you didn't win a lot of games at first, and then Sam gets fired, and Marty Schottenheimer. You guys finish the year strong, but you ultimately get to the point where we always talk about those teams that made it to those AFC championships. But I think the thing that I think is very interesting, I want to hear your take on this. I don't know that there's a lot of teams that have guys on it that experience maybe what you guys did in the mid 80s. You formed this identity, and I know it gets all credited back to Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifield and creating the dog pound. But really it was the whole team that created that identity. And then the city took it on, and Brian, to this day, and you're still here to this day, the dog pound is just like part of the fabric identity of the city of Cleveland. So, when you look back on your time with the Browns, before we even talk about any plays or games or whatever, and you look and you still see dog pound everywhere. You still see and hear the stories. And I'm sure when people run into you, all they talk about is, when I was a kid, my dad took me to the dog pound or whatever. It's got to mean something to you and to the rest of the guys that it wasn't just what you did on the field, but it was this like thing that you wove into the fabric of the city that's never going to go away. It's a legacy.
It's hard to describe the atmosphere of the environment of being on those teams with, you mentioned Hanford and Frank Minifield and, Felix Wright and Chris Rockins and Mark Harper and Stephen Braggs. I'm thinking of all the defensive halfbacks, Brian Washington, and then you had such great linebackers on that defense. You had Eddie Johnson and Tom Kuzno and Clay Matthews and Chip Banks. I mean, that's an all-star linebacker crew. And then the defensive line with Golick, and I'm trying to think, Reggie Camp, Carl Big Daddy Harrison, and Dave Pazzulli. I mean, it was a really talented defense. But the offense was equally as talented.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we had a great offensive line. Bernie was certainly a super quarterback, a great leader. I remember practicing against, those defensive backs, especially Hanford and Frank Minifield, who were, back then, bump and run was a real bump and run, unlike the bump and run is today. They could lock on you, and you really had to use your hands and get off, get away from them. But we competed against them day in, day out I think we made them better, and they certainly made us better. Webster Slaughter, nobody could get off the line of scrimmage like Webster Slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he made everybody look silly. I mean, I don't think he had a bone in his body. He was just like Michael Jackson at the line of scrimmage. You know, he created space for himself. And Langhorne was big and physical, and we had the Ice Cube. We had Gerald McNeil. The Ice Cube was about 130 pounds. Man, we had the locker room was a lot of fun, and everybody just pulled for each other. I mean, and then, Bernie was such a smart player. And Marty and Lindy Infante, and I'm just thinking the coaches, Richard Mann. I mean, we had Bill Cowher was my first special teams coach. I mean, we really had a real strong nucleus and extended strength across the entire team, and we believed in each other. And that's one thing in the NFL today. If you don't have strong leadership and a dynamic coach, it's hard to win in the NFL.
Now, time for another telephone question here. I want to know what you thought about the atmosphere, right? Because you go from Boston College, which, I mean, obviously college football atmospheres are crazy, but the 80s were back when the dog pound was throwing dog biscuits at the opposing team when they were warming up. So I was wondering, was it any sort of a shock, or what do you think of the atmosphere of Cleveland Browns Stadium when you were playing in there?
All right, so here's the question. Oh, I love this. We've never gotten a chance to do. It's like telephone. So, Chad's question is just about the atmosphere, the difference in the atmosphere. Coming from big time college football in Boston College, which it's not like you went to some small school somewhere. You played big time college football, but then the atmosphere of changing from there and going to Cleveland Browns Stadium, and the energy in the stadium, and obviously the dog pound gets created kind of while you're there, but people throwing dog bone cookies while you're there. Just what was the change in atmosphere, and especially as a young guy for you, what was that like with that cavernous old stadium out there for you to be running out there playing on that field?
I mean, just being in the NFL was cool. I mean, and then add in where the team was my rookie year versus every other year after that, the success. I was a Cleveland Brown for 8 of my 9 years, and we made the playoffs 7 of those 8 years. Yeah. And 3 AFC championship games. So the atmosphere that was created by the aggressiveness of the team and the fan base was, I think, the right word. I don't know, unique, special. It was just fantastic. I mean, being part of that whole thing. I don't think many teams throughout the NFL, the creation of the NFL has been able to duplicate what we seem to have here. I look at the Buffalo Bills, who made it to the Super Bowl and never won.
Oh,
similar, and
yes,
because they have the similar fan as I think Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, just to go the Browns backers across the country into the Europe even. It's so sentimental sometimes, because they still reach out to players like me to show up at an event, or the amount of fan mail. I've worked at what I consider, the best bank, regional bank in the country, Key Bank, for 31 years.
Yeah.
And people have sent me fan mail to my Key Bank location. I get a piece of fan mail 2 a day, it seems, at least 5 a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's just the amount of, gratitude I have, I think, towards the Cleveland fandom. I hope I've expressed it. If I haven't expressed it, then on this show right now, I'd like to express to any Cleveland Browns fan, thank you for being you and supporting me and the teams I was on. I mean, it was a special time. I'll never forget it. I played for the Bengals, which was a joke, I thought, organization in a sense. And then I played for the Chargers, which I have a real fondness for the Chargers. That was I liked the Chargers, but I didn't like the Bengals.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine that was San Diego days too. So that I would imagine There were some nice parts about the season
Beautiful.
going on in San Diego and not having to worry about wind chills
No,
and snowfall.
my last year when I was a Charger, I knew it was time probably to think about doing something else. We had Sean Jefferson, we had Anthony Miller and Nate Lewis, and then myself. And Stan Humphries was our quarterback. Bobby Ross was the head coach. But those three individuals were so fast. I've never seen. Sean Jefferson didn't have any restrictions. I never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, my ninth year, here I am.
Yeah, but you're going to catch. Everybody knows you're catching the ball when it comes to you. Brian, go back. We've made reference several times to Bernie, whether it was watching Doug Flutie beat him at Miami on the Hail Mary a year after you left, or just tell us kind of the story about what the wide receiver room was like a little bit, because you obviously had been here, and then Bernie goes through his situation in Miami. They do the supplemental draft, and Bernie. This sounds so wild to people in Cleveland nowadays, but Bernie basically put himself in there and said, "I'm going to do this because I want to go to Cleveland." Like, he basically just put himself out there and said, "Cleveland's where I want to be." And he's a Youngstown guy. It's not like it's weird for him to want to be close to home, but. When you guys saw that all going down and you ultimately hear, okay, yeah, Bernie Kosar's coming here to be our next quarterback. What's the tone in the room on the offense there?
It was, it's the off season, right? When that happens. And, our general manager was Ernie Accorsi, who proved out to be a great general manager here and then at the New York, football Giants.
Yes.
One of the all-time greats, maybe, Ernie Accorsi. And he saw something in Bernie and reached for him in the supplemental draft and did whatever he had to do to bring him here. And at the same time, Bernie wanted to come here. Not everybody understands what Cleveland is and how special the people in Cleveland are, but Bernie did. And Bernie is still, beloved. He'll never not love Bernie. And I try to stay in touch with Bernie as much as I can. And I want him to, get better and with his liver. And but when he was our quarterback, he was smarter than anybody else. He was a student of the game. Everybody talks about Peyton Manning being, the king of audibles back, the inception of Audible. Bernie Kosar, he was Audible and, before Peyton Manning was. But yeah, because Bernie hated to burn a play. Yes. He didn't always agree with the play calling. So when we'd be in the huddle, he goes, we're not running it. I'd bring a play and he goes, we're not running that play. Langor and I would run plays in a lot of the time. And Reggie was a great partner for me. We both played the same position, obviously, and Webster was the number one receiver. But Bernie would he wouldn't burn a play. He said, we're not running that play. In Lindy and Fonte's or Marty's mind, they were probably trying to set something else up. Right. But Bernie's like, we're not going to have anything. We're going to. But anyway, yeah. So Bernie was a real smart player and great leader. Yeah.
Now,
great guy.
Now it's going to be a broad question, but do you have a favorite catch or catches that sticks out in your memory from your days playing with Bernie?
Oh, I love that. I don't know. Again, I'll translate because I think you're still not hearing him, right?
I can't. Sorry,
okay.
Chad. I don't know why.
That's okay. It's all right. I can translate. So it's a broad question, he says, but during your time playing for the Browns, mostly with Bernie, do you have a moment that stands out to you as far as maybe a favorite catch or favorite catches that really stand out to you as the times when you look back at your career and you think, oh, that was just the best when that happened?
Well, obviously the AFC Championship. I think it was early January 1987, the '86 football season when we lost to Denver. Bernie threw when I was in the slot there. Bernie and I had great success. I don't know if this is true. Maybe Ernest Biner caught more passes from Bernie than anyone. If it was, it might have been Ernest. If not, it was me.
Right.
I'm not sure. But Bernie and I had a good chemistry, and that pass where we went up by 7 points with 5 minutes remaining in that game Well, yeah. I mean, I was Doug Flutie's receiver, and then here there's no Doug Flutie. It's me, and Bernie and I, were in sync a lot, and that was a big moment for me. That's a special moment. Another pass Bernie threw to me. It was another AFC Championship game. It was in Denver. It was the third AFC Championship game where Denver kind of blew us out. But I had 2 touchdown catches in that AFC Championship game, and one I had to stretch out for, and it was a Sports Illustrated catch in their magazine. That's a special moment for me. There's others.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I always liked the corner route where I was in the slot and I could set them up and go to the corner. Webster, Slaughter, and Langhorne could stretch that field and catch the long ball. Not that I couldn't, but they were, but my skill set was in the slot probably.
That begs the question, on any of your touchdowns, did you ever receive one of the patented Webster Slaughter jump air high fives?
Maybe.
It doesn't stand out.
He was always looking for Langhorne, I think, on that one. But we are all close. The receiver room, they would do anything for me, and I would do anything for them, even still today.
Yeah.
Even still today. When we would get in serious fights with the defensive backs and during practice, all the Minifield and I were notorious for getting at each other's throat.
Oh, yes.
And Marty had to intervene sometimes. He didn't want either of us to get injured. But Langhorne and Slaughter and the other receivers were always on my side against the defensive backs. They had my back. And I had
I love it. Brian, so, you spent so much time and you guys all made, it's just lasting. It'll just go on forever. The stories that people tell and that get passed down and passed down and passed down. And it's like, yeah, the Browns are what they are now, but you should have seen those boys in the 1980s. When you look forward, you kind of mentioned this. We were talking about the team and you need the coaches, you need the players. It all has to come together and all that. I sit here and look, and it's the last playoff game in this city was January 1st of 1995. Like if I would have told 1987 Brian Brennan that someday that would happen, everybody would have said I was crazy. But the last time this city hosted a playoff game, 1995, 31 years ago. It's when you started at KeyBank, basically, Brian. And obviously it must be so vivid. You must think of maybe that Jets game where it was just one of the all-time great football games. And it was here in Cleveland, and the stadium is raucous, and the fans are crazy, and people are throwing dog bone cookies everywhere. It was like, they do the food groups. I feel like one of my main food groups as a kid was dog bone cookies. And it was crazy here. And now you've got this situation here, Brian, where pretty much anybody under 40 doesn't really know what that's like and remember any of that. And so when you look at everything going on now, as I'm sure you still keep tabs a little bit on the Cleveland Browns.
Oh yeah, I'm a season ticket holder.
What?
I don't know why, but I.
Do you have to? I don't know if this is inappropriate. You have to buy tickets to the Cleveland Browns?
I buy 2 season tickets every year. My daughter Grace and my wife Bethany like to go down. I like to go down. If I chose to, the Browns would give me 2 tickets. Yeah, to a game. Yeah, as an alumni, they would. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right.
But I like to buy. I like to support the product, and I like my club activity, and I like the people I sit around. And
I love that.
I don't like the results on the field.
Never. Those are always bad. But it kind of leads into the question. Obviously, we're going to have a new coach now. Todd Monken, his press conference was today. And we'll see how it all goes down. They have a lot of work to do on the roster. Frankly, Brian, you look like you're still in good enough shape. That wide receiver room needs a little help. Maybe you could get out there and play a year or two, show those guys what's going on. But really, in reality, Brian, it feels like there's other forces in play at this point. It feels like you have to try to be this bad for this long. That you can't even get lucky and go on like a 3 or 4 year stretch where you're just good every year. And the Browns haven't been able to do that. So what has to change with them, in your opinion? What has to change in that building? Is it simple? Is it more simple than anything? Do they just have to find a quarterback? Or is it is there something that do they need to start doing some ritualistic activities to try to get rid of this thing and start winning football games?
Sacrifice a live chicken.
Wow, it's a tough question to answer. I want them to win so badly, and it's not easy to win in the NFL. We all know that. My former teammate, Ozzie Newsome, was no data scientist. He was certainly a great athlete and knew what a football player looked like and the attitude that they needed to be successful and the chemistry within the locker room. So you need to know what an athlete is. Ozzie knew what that was. He needed, to understand what it was like to be a teammate and fit into the locker room and fit into the scheme of the coaches. So, okay, with that equation, data wasn't the end all be all. It seems like for whatever reason, data became so important to this organization. I don't know. I don't know how other organizations did it or do it, but there hasn't been that great of a roster built ever. And I liked Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah.
I did. I thought he did a lot with the roster that he had, and then he was handcuffed with Deshaun Watson, which was a mistake. I think even the Browns admit that it was a mistake finally.
Yep.
Somebody drafted Johnny Manziel. I forget who that was.
I think it was Ray Farmer.
You don't understand that. I mean, just because they have a hunch. But there's people, there are teams out there that get it right and have the formula. And sadly, whatever's in place now is not working all that great. I like Jim Schwartz. I hope he stays. If you really want to develop around something, that defense is something you can develop around.
I just feel like there's this whole generation of people. Me as a Clevelander, as a guy who does remember those days where it was fun, and you as a guy that produced those memories for people. It's one of the hardest things to just talk or to think about is just the amount of people here that just have no idea. We call ourselves a football town, but they have no idea what kind of football town this really is because the organization's made it basically impossible to be what it was. And man, I want these kids to know what it's like to be a real Cleveland Browns fan, what that experience is really like.
I had a highlight just recently. Anthony Gonzalez, the great receiver from Ohio State,
yes,
who played in the NFL, became a U.S. congressman. I met him and his parents, Ed and Jenna Gonzalez, but recently, and they were thrilled to meet me, and I was thrilled to meet Anthony Gonzalez. I've never met him, but the parents expressed that young Anthony, wanted to be Brian Brennan, and that is how I was understanding it. But and he went on to be, a great player. What a great athlete he was. So, when you say those are the memories, that's what the Gonzaleses remembered about, Anthony growing up, and the winning Browns when I played. So that was a thrill for me.
There was a little Brian Brennan to Anthony Gonzalez. That's actually not the worst. That's not the worst comparison. No. I don't think I've ever heard. Brian, we're gonna let Soundless Chad get one more question in here before we let you get out of here. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, I just had one more. I want to go back to your playing days because I'm really curious. So much has made it. Everybody remembers Marty so fondly, and I'm wondering, is there a story or a moment that sticks out to you that you could tell us that just shows what kind of coach Marty was, what kind of person, what kind of coach Marty was?
So Chad wants to go back to your playing days for one last question, and he wants to ask about Marty Schottenheimer and how everybody kind of remembers Marty so fondly and what a coach he was. So he wants to know if you have a story that stands out that really displays the kind of coach that Marty was and the kind of leader of men that he was to kind of lead that Browns team to the heights that it got to.
Sure, I had a huge fondness for Marty and all of the disciplines that he brought to the team. My first coach, Sam, was like a father figure, put his arm around you and encourage you. Sam had a saying for everything. There's no I in team, but there's two, an idiot. the difference between a pat on the back and the kick in the arse is 6 inches, whatever that means.
Right.
He's got all these things. And then, then all of a sudden Marty was so disciplined. It was such a different dynamic with Marty than Sam, because, Marty knew what I was supposed to do on every play. And he knew what, if you were a punt coverage guy, the technique you were supposed to do there. And he was just such a detailed, he knew everything about every position. And the one play at a time he emphasized, but and he had played in the NFL for 5 or 6 years as a Buffalo Bill, if I remember. So he knew what it was like to be a player. He was so well prepared. He prepared every bit of the game. He was ahead of his time, I think, from a preparation standpoint versus other teams. And I think he wasn't afraid to keep us longer if we were, to get it right. And so Marty Schottenheimer was, I hated when he left. He went to the Chiefs, if I remember, then the Chargers, because he was a great coach. And I think he and Art Waddell got off sides, but everybody played hard for Marty. If you were anyone and you weren't playing enough and you went up to Marty and you said, "Hey, Marty, why didn't you put me, you can have a conversation. Well, you're not preparing. You're not in the weight room. You're not doing this. You missed a side adjustment. You didn't block. Ernest could have run." He would have 10 things on why you're not playing. And when you address those 10 things, you can play more. So everybody knew where they stood with Marty Schottenheimer. And I like that, because my dad was somewhat of a disciplinarian, and Marty was, and I think I did well with Marty. Yeah, I like Marty very much. God rest his soul. He was a really wonderful coach. Good guy.
That's great. All right, Brian, my last thing before I let you out of here. It's not something I'm used to seeing so much anymore, but I think one of the things that stands out, we talked about the culture of your team. I think one of the things that stands out, so many of the guys that you played with, not all of them, but so many of the guys that you played with back then are still around. They're still here in the Cleveland area. I'll run it. I feel like every time I'm at a certain restaurant, I see Hanford Dixon, or you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Bernie's still posting pictures here. And there's a lot of guys that still kind of live in this area and make Cleveland home. You don't see that so much anymore. And maybe that's because these guys are making $40 million and they can just go buy houses wherever they want. It was a little different back in the 80s. I know that. But does that say, I think that's a pretty good indication of how close you guys were as a team and why you guys had so much successes. There's a community element to it too. Why do you think so many guys have stayed, like you have stayed here?
I grew up in Detroit. I'll say it again. I grew up in Detroit, and the people in Cleveland resemble the people in Detroit. Hardworking, strong character, loyal people. I think that's part of it. When I think of people in Cleveland, and I think they resemble the teams that I played on: loyal, hardworking, gritty. So I was comfortable here. I think some of my teammates felt the same way. A lot of us had very long careers here. In today's free agency, there's the length of career in one city. It's remarkable if you're here more than 3 or 4 years, just because of the amount of money people draw your way, and there's the free agency market. And Myles Garrett, he stayed, and I guess he was paid to stay. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but yeah. So I guess that's how I would answer your question. I don't know.
Well, listen, I think there's going to be about 42 sound clips out of this that Browns fans are just going to go crazy about. It's been so fun taking a walk down memory lane with you, talking a little bit of Browns football at a time where Browns football was really something special, and you were such a huge part of it. So thank you very much for coming on with us, for sharing your story with us here, for being a part of our episode 300. And we appreciate you very much for taking the time to do this with us.
Congratulations on 300 episodes. That's remarkable. Congratulations.
Well, we appreciate it, Brian. And again, we're very grateful that you're a part of it. And hopefully you keep your tickets going, even maybe in a dome situation. And hopefully these Browns make it a little bit more fun to get down to those games.
I hope so too.
All right. We'll talk to you later, Brian.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Brian Brennan, man. Good stuff from Brian Brennan. It's terrible stuff. F+ out of Chad Meyer. But good stuff out of Brian Brennan. No, man. Listen, he was a good sport about that. I have no idea. There's no reason that we could hear Chad so clearly, but he couldn't. I didn't even know how to tell him how to fix it. But he was a good sport about it. Went through, answered all the great questions, and what a great walk down memory lane. And really, it is the ultimate thing. Chad, you and me, especially being a little bit older than Joe, we got to get these people to understand what Browns football is really like at some point, right? Like,
listen, we're really the last generation we honestly, we are. We're the last generation to be alive when the Browns were actually good year in and year out. And I want this city to know so bad, right? Like how crazy this town can get when the football team is good.
Like, I feel like you want to talk about, kids these days don't know. Nah, it ain't kids. It's adults. Adults these days don't know. It's people that have kids don't know what it's like around here when the Browns, we've got these more recently, it's these one-off yeurs. Oh, they were really good that one year, and then they were bad for 2 straight years. And then they were really good one year, and then now they're bad again. And there's no expectation they're going to be good year after year after year. And that's what my life was growing up. Chad, that's what your life was growing up, was just the expectation that we don't know what's going to happen with the Cavs. We don't know what's going to happen with the Indians or whatever. We know the Browns are going to be good every year. Like, you say that to a guy that's even your age, Joe's age and younger, and they're like, nah, that never happened. That never.
But it did.
Talking about?
But it did.
These guys stink.
Yeah.
Oh, brother. Well, listen.
It's so Browns to make one of their legends pay for season tickets.
I was glad to hear they didn't make him do that, because I was about ready to start saying some stuff on the podcast on Browns making Brian Brennan pay for his tickets, but they don't make him. He just does it because he wants to support them, and that I think is really cool. But again, that is an ultimate team. And I think it's a team they should look back on, even in modern times. We're talking about a lot of guys that were very good players, but they played with no egos.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's talking about Reggie Langhorne and Webster Slaughter and his wide receiver room. He's talking about Ozzie, and he's talking about the offensive line and Bernie. He's talking about the defense. Oh my gosh, the defense. And they played with no egos. They played as a team, like I am only as good as we are. Right. It was the example of the Cleveland Browns. And man, I think there's also a little bit more of that could be thrown around in the modern NFL game, because I think it's one of the biggest reasons the Browns were as good as they were for so many years.
1,000%. Yeah.
Well, anyways, listen, boys, we're going to wrap things up with episode 300, 2.5 hours. We don't normally go 2.5 hours, but all of you guys have stayed with us, so we appreciate you for doing it. Well, we're going to do one big cheer of the week, and then we're going to do some thank yous, and then get out of here with this fantastic, spectacular episode of Garage Beers. But I'm going to speak for Joe. I'm going to speak for Chad, and I'm going to say this. Our cheer of the week is 300 episodes. And there's people watching right now that were with us on episode 5 and episode 10 and episode 20. And it's you guys that we cheers. It's everybody that's watched, whether you've watched one episode, whether you don't even get to watch, but you're listening on Apple or Spotify, whether you get to watch us live or you have to watch us later, whatever it is. If you have ever tuned in and said, yeah, I'll give these guys a listen, our cheers goes to you. 300 of these episodes, and it still astounds me that we could be sitting here at 11:28 with 600 people in here. Like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And we've got a lot more coming up, and we've got big shows coming up. And so we appreciate you for sticking with us, and we say stick with us for 100 more, 200 more, 300 more. We'll go as many years as we want to go, and we are glad to have you on board with us. So you all get our cheers of the week. That brings up our thank yous. First thank you goes out to the OBR. Again, it's been our home for about 4 years now. That hit me tonight, basically. But the OBR hosts us. Get over to theobr.com. I know we talk about the Browns, the Cavs, the Guardians, the Buckeyes, the Blue Jackets, but the OBR is still the best place to get Browns coverage in all of Cleveland. So get over to theobr.com and make sure you hit subscribe over there. Our next thank you goes out to our amazing guests here tonight on episode 300. It started with Mike Fratello, then it went to Travis Hafner, and then we wrapped up with Brennan. Just unbelievable stories from those guys as we walked you down memory lane here tonight on episode 300. Big thank you to them. And as we were talking about just a minute ago, our biggest thank you goes out to all of you. If you watched us live tonight, we hope you enjoyed it. If you're going to catch us later on YouTube or Twitch or Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, we appreciate you for jumping in and for watching or listening as well. That's going to do it for episode 300 next week. Again, if you want to talk a little hockey, it's going to be a big hockey episode. It's going to be an interview with somebody that very well could have qualified to be on our episode 300, a legendary Columbus Blue Jacket joining us next week. We'll announce it when the time is right. But you'll want to be a part of that. Plus, we'll still talk Browns and Cavs and all that stuff too. But we hope you join us for that for episode 301. But for Joey out in Seattle, for Chad over on the east side of Cleveland, I am Michael Keefe. Go follow our show at The Garage Beers on all the socials. Tell your friends. You guys all have fun with us. Tell your friends. Come hang out with us on Garage Beers as well. But we appreciate you. We love you. This has been episode 300. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, cheers, everybody.